Chapter 492. Don't you know who she is? Magistrate Lu hatefully says, "You guys don't know who the new Shinshudaran of the Ghost City is, but you guys should have heard of the Enchantress of Medicine from Tianyuan City, the one who even the King of Hell can't take his life." The Enchantress? The first one to cry out in alarm was Dr. Wang. You're the Enchantress of Medicine from Tianyuan City, who is said to be able to bring the dead back to life. Yes. Didn't this young lady's medical skills bring the dead back to life? Magistrate Lu ignored him and continued. Even if you haven't heard of the Enchantress of Medicine, you should have heard of the godly tier alchemist, right? More than half of the top-notch drafts sold in the Ghost City today are refined by this Miss June. Have you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? How dare you doubt her identity and block her from entering? If you delay the treatment of the Ghost Lord, I'm afraid that even if you have 10 lives, it won't be enough to compensate for it. As soon as he said that, Dr. Wang's body swayed and he fell to the ground with a thud. The faces of the Ghost Wind Valley's guards turned pale with fright as they knelt down. How could they have thought of that? The Enchantress of Medicine who could bring the dead back to life. The godly alchemist whose drafts can be sold at sky-high prices in the Ghost City. It was actually this young girl who looked no more than 18 or 19 years old. Listening to Magistrate Lu's incessant flattery, watching the guards continuously kowtow and beg for mercy. Mu Yan's expression is indifferent. She gently patted off the mud and blood on her hands. The bloodstains had dried up and could not be wiped off. She was about to give up. However, her hand was suddenly grabbed by someone. A soft and slightly damp handkerchief covered her hand and gently wiped it. Soon, the bloodstain was wiped clean. Mu Yin subconsciously raises her head to look at Di Mingju's cold and handsome face. Unexpectedly, she met the man's bottomless eyes. It was filled with his own reflection. Mayan's heart skips a beat, and she subconsciously withdraws her hand. Only after a long while does she manage to calm down. She coughed lightly to hide her beating heart. He looks at Magistrate Lu with a sneer. "I just want to know one thing. This guard said that I'm not on the list of invited doctors. May I ask if the Ghost City doesn't want to cooperate with me from now on? Or, does the Ghost City have a problem with me? Since you have a problem with me, why don't you not force me to cooperate with you?" After saying that, she turned around without any reluctance. "Then I'll see you again." "Oh, no. I mean never again." No, Miss June. It's not like that. Listen to me. This is a misunderstanding. Really a misunderstanding." Mayan makes a move to leave, as if there's no room for maneuver this time. But at this moment, she heard a hoarse voice. "Enchantress, please wait." Mu Yin pauses and slowly turns around. Not far away, a tightly wrapped person with a mask on his face slowly walked over. It was impossible to tell whether he was a man or a woman. As he gets closer, Mayan's entire heart starts to beat faster. Her body's instinctive reaction to danger made every nerve in her body tense up. This person was very strong. His cultivation was even higher than his own. Moreover, that kind of strength was not only because his cultivation had reached the peak of the innate realm. Furthermore, it was because his body was emitting a sinister and strange aura. This kind of aura was somewhat similar to the Poison Man enforcerly that Qinqing had trained. However, he was far stronger than Protector Li. Chapter 493. Unlike the last time they met, the ugly white spots on Shi Lanling's face had disappeared without a trace. Her appearance was even more beautiful than before the white jade violet frost had dispersed. Seeing Mayan, Shi Lanling clenches her teeth. Her eyes are filled with resentful, murderous intent. However, Mu Yin didn't even bother to give her a single glance out of the corner of her eyes. Instead, she stared fixedly at the person who was tightly wrapped up and wearing a mask. This person slowly walked out of the Ghost Wind Valley. The cold and gloomy aura of the Ghost Wind Valley seemed to wrap around his body. This caused his originally sinister and treacherous aura to become even more uncomfortable. "I've long heard of the Enchantress of Medicine's great name. I'm Ghost King Lu Se of Half Moon City's Ghost City." Lu Se. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly contract. Could it be the Lu Se that she had heard of in her previous life? She really didn't expect that Gong Qinshue's hand had already stretched so far. Not only Jingchang country, Even the ghost city of Huangyao country has already become something in her pocket. From the looks of it, today's treatment of the Ghost King was probably a real trap. Mu Yin slowly narrows her eyes, subconsciously reaching out to grab something. If she was alone, she would not be afraid. But Xiaobao was in her space. If anything were to happen to her, Xiaobao would be exposed in front of others and be harmed. This was something she would never allow to happen. Her small hand, which she had stretched out in panic, was suddenly held by a warm and wide hand. The man's body slowly approaches, his deep voice faintly echoing in her ears. "Don't be afraid, Yen Yen. I will always be by your side." As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Sei's body suddenly stiffened, and she even took a step back. A pair of cold and severe eyes sweep over Mayan and Di Mingju. A look of shock and fear appeared on his face. Tightly pressed against his body, Mu Yin can clearly feel Di Mingju's body temperature, his heartbeat, as well as his unique aura. The last bit of uneasiness in his heart disappeared without a trace at this moment. Yes, she still has Di Mingju. She, Xiaobao, and Di Mingju. After that, her thoughts suddenly stopped, and she was slightly vexed and dazed. Since when did she start to trust and rely on this man so much? She had clearly sworn that in this life, the most important things to her were only Xiaobao and revenge. Before her vengeance was over, she would never be tainted by such an unstable factor as feelings. Mayan takes a deep breath and breaks free from Di Mingju's hand, resuming her usual calm and languid self. Since it was her own hatred, of course, she had to do it herself. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. Ghost City's long-awaited method is to repeatedly ignore my sincerity and play me for a fool? This one can't accept such an honor. I think whatever Shanshu, whatever cooperation, just forget about it in the future. After saying that, he pretended to leave. Lu Sei didn't expect her to leave so decisively. He could not help but frown. Wait a moment. Lu Sei promptly opens her mouth to call out to Mayan. Today's matter, it was my Ghost Wind Valley that handled matters improperly. I asked Miss June to not take offense. Your name was accidentally deleted by Shixianzi. Shixianzi, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and apologize to Miss June. You want me to apologize to her? Lanling screamed in disbelief. However, Lu Sei's cold gaze swept over. Chapter 494. She fiercely glares at Mu Yin, her face twisted with resentment, but in the end, she still clenches her teeth and says, It's my fault, Miss June. Please don't take offense. Mayan looks at her with a smile that isn't a smile. I'm sorry, Shixianzi. I don't see the sincerity in your apology. Lanling's face turns from white to green, green to purple, purple to black. In the end, she can only stiffen her body and salute Mayan. I was wrong. I ask Miss June to forgive me. The guards of the Ghost Wind Valley, as well as Dr. Wong and his medicine boy, all widened their eyes. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. These two, one is the Ghost King of Huangyao country's Ghost City. The other is the only one in the Ghost City who can do alchemy, Shixianzi. But now, for the sake of a young lady, he had to lower himself to apologize. This Enchantress, could it be that her medical skills were really that terrifying? The draft that she refined, could it really be that miraculous? Even the medicinal pills that Shixianzi refined could not compare to hers? Of course, Lanling also felt the probing and pitiful gazes of the people around her. She has such a high and lofty status in the Ghost City. When and where has she ever suffered such humiliation? At this moment, he really wishes he could pounce over and dismember that slut June Mayan into 1,000 pieces. However, she had no choice but to endure it. Calm and unruffled, Mu Yin watches Lanling's joke for a long time. Since Shixianzi apologizes so sincerely, then I'll accept it. It's just that Shixianzi made such a low-level mistake time and time again. It really makes me doubt. With your IQ, can you really refine pills to save people? Don't tell me that you messed up the main ingredients when you were refining the pills? Or let me make a bold guess. Because of Shixianzi's improper treatment, the Ghost King is now beyond cure? Hee, if that's the case, the Ghost King is really too pitiful. Mu Yan's words sound like a joke, but the guards of the Ghost Wind Valley uniformly looked towards Shi Lanling. A few of the guards had suspicious looks on their faces. Shi Lanling's face was already purple. After hearing these words, she felt her vision go black. Her body swayed, and she almost fainted. June Mayan, this slut, slut, slut. She must kill her immediately. After insulting Shi Lanling enough, Mayan enters the Ghost Wind Valley under the invitation of Ghost King Lu Se. The Nether Hall in the Ghost Wind Valley is divided into inner and outer halls. The seriously ill Ghost King is currently recuperating in the inner hall. All the doctors must stay in the inner hall, but the entourage is not allowed to enter the inner hall, so they can only stay in the outer hall. Lu Se's pair of eyes behind the mask faintly look towards Mayan. Miss June, surely you wouldn't mind. Mayan hasn't said anything yet, but Ingmei and Hanyi are already anxiously saying, how can this be? Miss June, you are alone, if there is any danger. Hee, our Ghost Wind Valley sincerely invites Miss June to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. How could there be any danger here? Shi Lanling sneers, her gaze drifting towards Mayan is brimming with disdain and provocation. Or could it be that Miss June doesn't even have this little bit of courage, and needs someone to accompany her in order to dare to stay in the Ghost Wind Valley? Mayan slightly raises her long eyebrows, stopping Hanyi and the others from protesting. What was to come would come. Running away and retreating was not her style. She really wants to see why Shi Lanling and Lu Se insist on separating her and Di Mingju's trio. In the end, what do they want to do? Chapter 495. However, this glance makes her heart sink slightly, because this is the first time she looks at Di Mingju. But Di Mingju is looking at another woman, Shi Lanling. The rooms that the Ghost Wind Valley provides for doctors can be said to be very luxurious. The furnishings inside are incomparably extravagant. Everything that should be there is there. Every room was also equipped with 4 beautiful, witty, and intelligent little girls. Mu Yin waves her hand to dismiss them. After making sure that there's no one around to spy on them, she flashes into the space. Nyang Qin. Xiao Bao throws himself into her arms, his little raised face full of attachment. Nyang Qin. Xiao Bao has been cultivating properly. The fat rabbit also hops a couple of times, letting out a howl. I've also been cultivating properly. Mu Yin reveals a soft smile, patting Xiao Bao's head, and then the fat rabbit. Nyang Qin is going to refine an elixir now. Keep an eye on it for Nyang Qin, and if anyone comes near, alert Nyang Qin. Xiao Bao nods heavily. Holding the fat rabbit, he sits next to Mu Yin, but his attention is completely focused outside the space. Mu Yin takes out the furnace and ignites the pill fire. This time, she wants to refine an elixir that can restrain the Yin energy in the Ghost Wind Valley. From the moment she entered the Ghost Wind Valley, she felt strands of cold Yin energy eroding her veins. It might be nothing for a short period of time, but after a long time, if the Yin energy becomes a bit stronger, she's afraid that it will have a bad effect on her. Once she absorbs too much Yin energy, the space will also be nibbled away by the Yin energy. Of course, Mu Yin won't allow such a thing to happen. The sound of the zither slowly rises, and the pill fire in the furnace burns even more vigorously. After a long time, 6 elixirs finally take shape. It's different from the last elixir that spread its fragrance for thousands of miles and alarmed countless creatures. The 6 elixirs this time are very ordinary. Mu Yin gives one each to Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit. She then swallows one herself. Xiao Bao obediently swallows the elixir, then looks at Mu Yin. He hesitates for a moment before saying, Nyang Qin, are you unhappy? Mu Yin stares blankly. She's unhappy? Why not? Just because Di Mingju saw another woman? She frowned, stroked little Bao's head, and pulled out a smile. Baby, don't worry, mother isn't unhappy. I'm just wondering if I should give Hanyi and Ingmei an elixir as well. Hearing this, little Bao immediately nodded. Yes. Xiao Bao feels that after eating the medicinal pill, my body no longer feels cold and uncomfortable. Mother is so amazing. Xiao Bao's Nyang Qin is so awesome was purely because of his unwarranted worship and trust towards Mayan. However, if other people in the Ghost Wind Valley knew about this kind of medicinal pill, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop. After all, what was the most frightening thing about the Ghost Wind Valley? It wasn't the powerful guards inside, but the poison smog that could corrode one's lungs. Without the corresponding antidote, just inhaling a certain amount of poison smog would cause one's entire body to go limp and unable to resist. This was also the reason why even innate realm experts could enter the Ghost Wind Valley. They might not even be able to get out of here alive. The poison smog of the Ghost Wind Valley has existed for hundreds of years, and it has also been studied for hundreds of years. However, no one outside of the Ghost City has ever been able to crack it. But at this very moment, Mayan was able to refine an elixir that could restrain the poison smog, just based on the poison smog that her body came in contact with. Chapter 496. Mu Yin hesitated for a while, but still quietly left the room and headed out of the hall. At this time, the sky was completely dark. The door to the room was gently pushed open, but it was dark and empty inside. Di Mingju isn't in the room? Mu Yin frowned slightly. At this hour, if Di Mingju isn't in the room, where would he go? However, since he's not here, she doesn't stay any longer. She turns around and heads towards Mei and Han Ye's room. In fact, she also knows that Di Mingju's body is special. Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog, he probably did not care about it at all. However, before she could go out, suddenly, footsteps and voices came from outside the door. Hearing the familiar voice, Mu Yin stopped in his tracks and subconsciously hid behind the screen. Emperor, don't walk so fast. Lanling can't keep up with you. The door to the room was pushed open and the candle was lit. Then, Shi Lanling's coquettish voice, which sounded like she was pinching her throat, clearly came from the room. Mu Yin subconsciously clenched her fists and pursed her lips into a line. It wasn't because of Shi Lanling's affected voice. Instead, she hears another familiar breathing and footsteps. That's Di Mingju's. Her figure instantly became faintly discernible. His aura was completely restrained in the space. If there were no energy fluctuations, no one would be able to detect her presence if they didn't look carefully. Mayan tilts her body slightly to the side and looks through the gap of the carved and hollowed-out wooden screen. He could vaguely see the figures of a man and a woman. Di Mingju sits on a chair, slowly turning the teacup in his hand. Under the candlelight, his handsome and elegant face appeared to be dazzling and unattainable. Shi Lanling was standing not far away, staring at his face in a daze. It was as if it longed to get closer, but was afraid to do so. Emperor Di, have you considered the matter that Lanling suggested to you just now? Di Mingju looks at the teacup in his hand, his expression cold and detached. He doesn't answer. Shi Lanling seemed to be completely unaware of his coldness. She continued to stare at him foolishly and said, Di Jun, you're not a person from the Yinwu continent. I'm afraid you should be from that Xiuzhen continent that everyone yearns for, right? Everything in this Yinwu continent, whether it's people or objects, Di Jun naturally wouldn't put them in your eyes. Step by step, she slowly approaches Di Mingju. The pressure from the man's body made it hard for her to breathe. But it also makes her more and more amazed, infatuated, and longing for it. Di Jun must have come to the Yinwu continent to ask for something. That Junmayan is merely a mortal woman who has a child and has long lost her innocence. However, the Emperor condescends to keep her by his side. Presumably, it's because that woman has something that the Emperor desires, right? His heart seemed to be squeezed tightly in an instant. Mayan stares unblinkingly at the man's expression. However, the man's expression did not change at all. It was as if she had heard something unimportant. Then, he casually looked at Shi Lanling. Oh, then tell me, what has been Jun's scheme? Hearing Di Mingju's question, Shi Lanling's eyes immediately brightened. An ecstatic look flashed across his face. What Lu Se said was right. For such a powerful man to want a broken shoe like Junmayan, it's really because he's plotting something from her. Moreover, she also knows that the bastard simply isn't Di Mingju's. Chapter 497. If that's the case, Di Jun simply doesn't really like Mayan. He just wanted to use her. Shi Lanling suppressed the surging desire in her heart, and the expression on her face became more and more coquettish. Her skin was covered with white spots just a few days ago. At this moment, however, It had become fair and transparent, like a fine piece of jade. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that her skin was so thin that it seemed as if it would break at any moment. It was sparkling and translucent, and it was somewhat unusual. June, the reason why you value June Mayan so much should be because she has a pre-celestial holy body that's rarely seen in 10,000 years, right? Cultivating yin-yang dual cultivation with such a woman will be several times more effective, be it in terms of cultivation or healing. Even if June Mayan has already lost her purity and no longer has a pure yin constitution, she is still a rare furnace in this world. Emperor, do you think Lan Ling is right? Mingju slowly raises his head, his eyes faint. You only know this? Sure. Lan Ling stares blankly, not understanding what Mingju's words mean. Then she heard the man's cold voice. Or, should I ask, who told you these words? Who planted the golden silkworm goo in your body? Sure. Lan Ling's expression changed. She forced herself to be calm and said, what is the Emperor Lord saying? Lan Ling doesn't understand? Lan Ling represents Ghost City and hopes to cooperate with June. His throat was clutched by a steel-like hand, tightening bit by bit. The air in his body was squeezed out bit by bit. Sure. Lan Ling's complexion turned green and purple, her eyes filled with panic and fear. Emperor, spare my life. It's King of Hell. It's King of Hell Lu Sei. Let me. His throat was released, and a large amount of cold air was poured into his throat. Sure. Lan Ling coughed violently. At this very moment, besides adoration, there's also a bit of fear in her eyes as she looks at Mingju. Trembling with fear, she says, June, it was Ghost King Lu Sei who sent me to find you. I hope that you can cooperate with the Ghost City. As long as you don't stop and don't intervene in what happens next, all of the Ghost City's resources will be at your disposal. Whatever you want to find in the Yinwu continent, the Ghost City can find it for you. Ghost King also guaranteed that as long as she sits on the throne of the Ghost King, she will be even more respectful to you than Guyu. In fact, Sure. Lan Ling said, blushing slightly. He slowly reached out and took off his coat. Her snow jade-like shoulders, half-covered breasts, and her lithe body, which was only wearing a thin inner garment, were exposed. In fact, if you want Lan Ling is willing to offer my body to you. Although Lan Ling doesn't have the innate saint physique, she has the rare heavenly female physique. Moreover, compared to June Mayan, Lan Ling is still a virgin. If the Emperor is willing, Lan Ling is willing to devote myself to you, even if it's as a slave or a concubine, or even as a cauldron, as long as it's for the Emperor, Lan Ling is willing. Saying that, she shyly and expectantly looks at Mingju, her eyes filled with deep affection. The man in front of her was like a god, aloof and incomparably handsome. Even in the cultivation continent, such a man would surely be supreme. How could a small Yinwu continent hold Sure Lan Ling's ambition? As long as she could dedicate herself to such a man, even if she had to be a slave, a concubine, or even a cauldron, so what? She can follow him, leave the Yinwu continent, and henceforth become incomparably noble. That was the life that belonged to her. Chapter 498. Sure Lan Ling's heart is getting hotter and hotter. Slowly, with a seductive gesture, she put her hand in front of her chest. Little by little, she pulls off her clothes, until the snow-white, alluring body is revealed under the flickering candlelight. June, Lan Ling is ready for you to pick. Don't you want it, June? She uses the softest voice to say the most sticky and coquettish words, step by step walking towards Mingju. The man's gaze on her body doesn't fluctuate in the slightest. It's like looking at a dead thing, a pile of trash. Sure Lan Ling's heart sinks, then she tries even harder to twist her delicate body, taking off the remaining clothes on her body bit by bit. Your Majesty, let Lan Ling serve you. In the darkness, Mayan's expression turns a little cold. Her heart, which was originally opening up bit by bit because of Mingju's protection and companionship, is once again sealed up at this moment. It's like a thick layer of ice has condensed on the outside, never to be opened to anyone again. Only the strands of pain in her heart, like it's being cut by a knife, reminds her. Once, she was almost moved by this man, moved by emotions. Mayan's mind is completely calm, thinking about how she should quietly get away when the two of them are deep in passion. But at this moment, there's the sound of a violent impact. Mayan stares blankly. Looking out through the gap in the screen, she sees the two people who should be embracing each other intimately. Right now, only Di Mingju is left standing in the room, and Lanling's entire body has already flown out, smashing through the door and landing heavily outside the room. The violent noise wakes up the guests and guards in the outer hall. Everyone follows the sound and comes over, only to see a naked Lanling lying in the grass, her face lifeless and incredulous. What happened? This, isn't this Shixianzi? Oh my, how could Shixianzi not even wear a single piece of clothing? And just now, didn't she fly out of that room? Along with all kinds of voices, there's also those gazes that fall on her naked body, whether it's passion or disgust or gloating. Everything caused her mind to go blank, and she was unable to think. Why? Why did things turn out like this? Wasn't she offering herself to Di Mingju just now? Wasn't she about to successfully seduce this man? Why did she fall from heaven to hell in the blink of an eye? My lord, what happened? Han Yi and Ing Mei hurriedly rush over. Seeing Lanling lying naked in front of Di Mingju's door, they reveal a disgusted expression. Why is it this woman again? Han Yi snappily says, Shixianzi, don't you have any shame? My family's Junshang has long said that he doesn't fancy you. Moreover, my family's Junshang already has a wife. You repeatedly run over to offer yourself as a pillow. Aren't you a bit too thick-skinned? I didn't expect that Shixianzi, who is as noble and pure as a lotus on the surface, is actually such a debauched person in private. TSK. She offered herself as a pillow, yet she was kicked out. If this matter were to spread, I'm afraid that Fairy Shi's reputation in the future. What Shixianzi? Bah, what a shameless whore. In the past, Lanling used her holy and noble identity to guide public opinion and destroy many women she disliked. Chapter 499. However, she had never imagined that one day, she would become the target of public criticism. Frantic screams accompanied Lanling's frantic dash as she covered her face and gradually faded into the distance. After today, Shixianzi, who was once sought after by everyone, can be considered to have been completely pulled down from the altar. Everyone laughed and left. The door was slowly closed, and the candles in the room were extinguished. The room fell into endless darkness and silence. Mu Yan's figure slowly withdraws from the space, quietly arriving at the open window. Just as she was about to jump out of the window and leave, a scorching aura suddenly wrapped around her. His steel-like arms wrapped around her waist and restrained her tightly. The man's deep voice rang in his ears, "Since Mu Yan is here, how can he bear to leave so quickly?" Mu Yan's breathing stagnates, but her expression soon returns to normal, and she slowly turns around. "When did the Lord discover that I was here?" Di Mingju's brows wrinkle. There's obvious displeasure in his eyes. I said, "Call me by my name." Mu Yan doesn't want to compete with him in this aspect, so she readily follows his advice and calls out, "Di Mingju, you hid your aura very well. I didn't notice it at first. It was only when Lanling took off her clothes that I sensed the fluctuation of your aura." Di Mingju gently strokes her hair, but Mu Yan tilts her head to avoid it. "This is a medicinal pill that I refined. It can restrain the Yin Qi in the Ghost Wind Valley." Mayan doesn't pay attention to Di Mingju's stunned expression. She spreads out her palm, and 3 elixirs appear in her palm. "I've come to deliver elixirs to you, Ing Mei and Han Yi, but I think that maybe you don't need them." "No, Bin Jun needs it." Di Mingju's brows are tinged with a trace of indescribable gentleness. "As long as it's something that Mayan gives, Bin Jun wants it all." As he said that, he directly swallowed a pill in Mu Yan's hand. When the man's warm lips touch her palm, Mayan's heart can't help but jump. She quickly withdrew her hand and placed the other 2 pills on the table. "If there's nothing else, I'll head back first." Saying that, she breaks free from Di Mingju's embrace and turns around to leave. However, Just as she takes a step forward, Ming-ju suddenly pulls her back. Mu Yin, are you angry? The man's deep voice rang in her ears. Mu Yin stares blankly for a moment, then says with a smile that isn't a smile, why should I be angry? Or are you jealous? Jealous of your big head. Mu Yin finally got angry. She fiercely kicked the man's body. At the same time, her body was like a swimming fish. She broke free from the man's embrace and quickly flew out of the door. His body was about to rush out of the door. Suddenly, the door slammed shut in front of her eyes. Then, his body was pressed tightly against the tightly shut door by a tall and hot body. Ming-ju's handsome face is very close. The icy blue eyes seem to be burning with blazing flames, wanting to devour her completely. His hot breath gently blew on her lips and face, making her whole body heat up. Ming-ju, let go. I won't. Ming-ju leans down and slowly says, Mayan, I've said it before, in this lifetime, I will never let go of your hand. Mu Yin sneered and said, because I have something to gain from it? What pre-celestial holy body that can allow you to quickly... Before she could finish speaking, Ming-ju's lips pressed down, completely swallowing her voice. Chapter 500. A broad palm presses the back of her head, forcing her closer to him, unable to escape. But his movements are so gentle, so careful, as if he's protecting a treasure. It also makes Mayan sink a little, unable to extricate herself. After a long time, the lips part. Mayan's lips are slightly red and swollen, all the more alluring. The silver threads sticking to the corners of her lips make the charming and ambiguous atmosphere in the room seem like someone has added a fire. Little heartless. Ming-ju's voice is unreasonably hoarse. The broad palm grabs her small hand and slowly moves down, finally pressing down on a hard and scorching place. Mayan is so startled that she almost jumps up. She wants to break free from the man's hand, but she's shackled, unable to leave. As a result, she intuitively feels the man's dagger-drawn lust. Heartless woman, if I really just want your body, why would I have to endure so much? Mayan's face is so red that it's almost dripping water. But it's as if someone has reignited a fire in her heart, melting the ice that has just been built up a little bit. You let go first. Ming-ju presses her hand tighter. His voice is like a hoarse whisper, with a trace of pleading. Mayan, Ben-jun won't touch you before you're willing, but you're responsible for extinguishing the fire that you've lit. An hour later, Ming-ju embraces the sleeping girl in his arms, lowering his head to gently kiss her between the eyebrows. He gets up and goes to the outer room, lightly knocking on the edge of the table. Jun Shang, Han Yi, and Ing Mei quickly come over from next door, kneeling in front of him. Ming-ju's expression appears incomparably cold in the darkness. Shi Lanling has the gold silkworm goo on her. Gold silkworm goo? Han Yi and Ing Mei suddenly raise their heads, looking shocked. Isn't that the goo that only the people of Tianyi Min can use? Ing Mei frowns. Junshang, you're saying that there are people of Tianyi Min in this Ghost Wind Valley? Why would people of Tianyi Min come to the Yinwu continent? Could it be? Han Yi clenches his teeth, saying, could it be that someone from Tianyi Min has discovered that the Shin musicians are in the Yinwu continent? Someone even knows that Miss June is the successor of the Shin musician? When the Shin musician inheritance was triggered by Mayan, it alarmed the Shoshin continent, but it was covered up by Ming-ju. However, the remodeling of Mayan's moon spirit root and the ringing of the ghost bell in the Shin musicians' ruins in the inn still attracted the attention of Tianyi Min and all the sects of the Shoshin continent. No one knows better than Ming-ju how much those old farts of the Shoshin continent loathe the Shin musicians, how much they dread them, and how much they fear them. The current Mu Yin was still so weak. If these people knew of Mu Yan's existence, even Ming-ju might not be able to protect her. Ming-ju's hands slowly clench and loosen. After leaving the Ghost Wind Valley, I will return to the Shoshin continent. My lord, Han Yi anxiously says, your real body is now in the Yinwu continent. When you return to the Shoshin continent, you won't even have a tenth of your strength. It's too dangerous to deal with matters related to the Shin musicians. It would be better. There's no need to say anymore. Ming-ju's gaze sweeps over the inner room, his eyes becoming indescribably gentle. In any case, I will not allow anyone to hurt Mayan. Chapter 501. The Xin division led by Ying Mei is the fastest knife in the polar domain, and it's a knife hidden in the dark. Han Yi and Ying Mei look at each other and finally bow. As you bid, Jun Shang. For the next 3 days, Mu Yin hides in the space to refine pills. She just doesn't want to see Di Mingju. That night, whenever Mu Yin thinks about it, it's like her whole body is ignited. That shameless pervert, bastard. A few soft, pleading words really made her give up her principles and resistance. Although it didn't go to the end. But, Madam Enchantress, don't you think it's too strange? Dr. Wang's question pulls Mu Yan's mind back from that charming night. We were clearly invited to treat the Ghost Lord, but 3 days have passed, and we haven't even seen the sick Ghost Lord's face. Until now, we don't even know what illness the Ghost Lord has. Don't you think it's too strange? Ever since that day when Mu Yin ruthlessly taught him a lesson and awed him by her godly medical skills, Dr. Wang has always been respectful and afraid of Mu Yin. Occasionally, he would even shamelessly ask Mu Yin questions about medical skills. As time goes by, Dr. Wang simply prostrates himself in admiration of Mu Yan's knowledge and strength. After these 3 days, apart from Mu Yin, the other doctors finally realize that something is wrong. They've been invited here for 3 days, and during these 3 days, the Ghost Wind Valley has been serving them comfortably, making them unable to find any fault. But the problem is, they're not here to enjoy, but to treat a disease. As they're talking, a group of ghost envoys wearing the Ghost Wind Valley's uniform suddenly come in. In the blink of an eye, they surround Mu Yin and Dr. Wang. The leader of the ghost envoys condescendingly looks at the two, his expression arrogant and compassionate. Dr. Jun, Dr. Wang, the Ghost Lord invites you. He wants us to go over now? Dr. Wang shows a surprised expression. Don't tell me he wants us to treat the Ghost Lord? The leader of the ghost envoys opens his mouth, revealing a malicious smile. Exactly. So the 2 doctors, please. But it's already dark, and we're going to rest soon. Dr. Wang immediately retorted, the most important thing for a doctor to do is to focus. Even if we go there now, we won't be able to diagnose and save the patient. That's not up to you. The ghost messenger sneered in disdain, and then his gaze became increasingly cold. Haven't the 2 of you heard of a saying? If the King of Hell wants you dead by midnight, he won't let you live until the 5th. Since our King of Hell has asked you to go and treat the patient now, you must go now. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of ghost constables unsheathed their weapons. The cold gleam of their blades accompanied the increasingly dense and cold air in the room as they slowly approached Dr. Wang and Mu Yin. Dr. Wang was so shocked that he fell from his seat and sat on the ground. Mu Yin, however, faintly hooks up the corners of her lips. The ghost envoy glanced at Mu Yin and sneered, Madam Enchantress, I know that your subordinates are very powerful, but the door to the inner hall is already closed. Even if they wanted to come in, they wouldn't be able to. Just give up. Chapter 502. The ghost messenger's face revealed a bit of suspicion. Then he immediately sneered and waved his hand to have the 2 people take them away. Outside the house, Mu Yin heard waves of panicked and angry voices coming from the entire inner hall. Impudent. I am a doctor invited by your Ghost King to treat your Ghost King. How dare you be so rude and impudent? Do you know who I am? How dare you attack me? Let me go. Let me go. Where are you taking me? The chaotic scene, the angry curses and screams, caused panic to spread throughout the entire Ghost Wind Valley. However, the doctor's resistance was futile. The actions of the ghost messengers were very rough and cruel, completely lacking the attentive and careful treatment they had towards these doctors a few days ago. This caused a sentence to flash through Mu Yan's mind. The dagger was revealed. In these 3 days, presumably Lu Sei and Shi Lanling were making some sort of preparation, so they had been biding their time. Now that the preparations were complete, they no longer needed to disguise themselves and revealed their true colors. Soon, all the doctors were escorted by the ghost envoys to a spacious hall. There were no seriously ill ghost kings in the hall. Only Yama King Lu Se, whose entire body was wrapped up tightly, and Shi Lanling, who wore a gorgeous dress and heavy makeup, sat on the main seats. The surroundings of the hall were filled with ghost envoys dressed in uniforms. Compared to the ghost envoys in the ghost city, the cultivation of these ghost envoys is a whole level higher. As they got closer, they could smell the thick scent of blood coming from their bodies. It proved how many lives they had stained their hands. More than 10 highly respected doctors were pushed into the hall like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone's faces were filled with unease, but they kept quiet out of fear, not daring to speak. At this moment, many people were already regretting in their hearts. He shouldn't have risked his life in the Ghost Wind Valley for the core condensation secret technique. Yama, what are you doing? Suddenly, a loud and clear voice rang out, breaking the silence. We are the doctors that you have personally invited to treat the Ghost King, not criminals. Don't tell me this is how you Ghost City treats your guests? Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Seeing who the person who spoke was, many people showed expressions of relief. So Dr. Song is here. That's great. Yes. Dr. Song is a person of virtue and prestige, who in the entire Yinwu continent wouldn't regard him highly. Even the royal family of Jingchang country has to respectfully invite him over. The one speaking is Jingchang country's Changsho Hall, Dr. Song. He is extremely famous in Yinwu continent, and can be said to be second only to godly Dr. Qian Qing. Very soon, another white-haired old man with a pair of awkward eyes spoke up. What nonsense! Where's the Ghost King? Where is it? This time, the Ghost King must give us a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, we will not let this matter rest. This old man wants to report this to His Majesty, and let His Majesty personally make the decision for me. Seeing the old man speak, someone else exclaimed, That's Huang Yao country's national healer, Dr. Du. Ha, the Ghost City is in trouble this time. Dr. Du is Huang Yao country's emperor's imperial physician. Many of the drafts in Huang Yao country's Ghost City are refined by him. Moreover, Dr. Du has a violent temper. If you provoke him, then this time, the Ghost City will suffer. Then, one after another, virtuous and respectable doctors stood up and condemned Lu Se and Shi Lanling. Chapter 503. At the head of the table, Lu Se's face was hidden behind a mask, and no expression could be seen. Only a pair of eyes, without a trace of warmth, coldly swept over everyone below. Shi Lanling, who is sitting next to her, is glaring at Mayan. A pair of devilish eyes, outlined by thick makeup, exuded intense hatred and excitement. The only one with a leisurely expression in the entire audience was probably Mu Yen alone. While everyone was arguing, she openly found a place to sit down, poured herself a cup of tea, and slowly drank it. Looking at her leisurely appearance, Shi Lanling remembered the embarrassment she made 3 days ago. The evil fire in her heart burned crazily, making her almost unable to control herself from pouncing over and tearing Mu Yan's face to pieces. But thinking about what was about to happen, Shi Lanling calmed down and revealed a sinister smile. All right, let's not talk nonsense now. Dr. Song raised his hand and gestured for everyone to quiet down. Then, he turned his sharp gaze towards Lu Se. Where is the Ghost King? Didn't you tell us to treat the Ghost King? That's right, after you cure the Ghost King, you have to hand over the core condensation secret technique according to the agreement. If you dare to deceive us, don't blame this old man for being impolite. Dr. Du coldly says, when the time comes, we will unite all the countries to boycott the Ghost City and make you completely disappear from the Yinwu continent. Ha ha ha, boycott the Ghost City. With trash like you? Lu Se finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. The ghost envoys surrounding the doctors all revealed looks of ridicule and disdain. Seeing this, Dr. Du and Dr. Song's faces alternated between green and white. Good. You actually dare to fool us like this? Let's wait and see. Everyone, since the Ghost City doesn't have any sincerity, what are we still doing here? Let's go. Dr. Du waved his hand, and the other doctors immediately responded. Everyone was about to leave in anger. However, just as they reached the door, 2 ghost servants blocked their way. Get lost. Don't block my path. Dr. Song pushed out his palm, and a powerful Xian-Chi that contained an intense killing intent filled the air. Dr. Song, who looked like a scholar on the outside, actually had the cultivation of heaven stage. Therefore, there was no fear on his face. He also didn't think that 2 mere ghost messengers could block his way. However, in the face of such an attack, the 2 ghost servants blocking the door. However, there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, he revealed a mocking smile. Suddenly, a huge palm leaf fan appeared in one of the ghost envoy's hands. He slapped Physician Song forcefully. A bone-chilling cold wind blew against his face. Dr. Song only felt that the profound chi that he pushed out with his palm was completely swallowed up by this wind in an instant. Then, there were a few loud bangs. One by one, the doctors who rushed to the door were kicked into the air by the ghost envoys. He landed heavily in the hall. For a moment, the entire hall was filled with cries of anguish. Dr. Song stood up from the ground, blood seeping out from the corner of his mouth. He fiercely glared at Lu Se. Poison smog. Lu Se, how dare you use poison smog on us? You deranged beast, what are you trying to do? Daring to make a move against so many doctors in the Ghost Wind Valley, aren't you afraid of being hunted down by all the martial artists? Lu Se slowly stood up from her seat and pulled with her hand. Chapter 504. Many people revealed expressions of horror and disgust when they saw her face. Even Mayan stares blankly. Even she didn't expect that Lu Se would actually be a woman, and that her true appearance would actually be like this. Lu Se leisurely and contentedly enjoyed their horrified expressions. Then, he walked step by step towards Dr. Song and Dr. Du. You want to leave so soon? What's the rush? Don't you want to heal the Ghost King? Don't you want the core condensation secret skill? Dr. Song gritted his teeth. Lu Se, don't go too far. Actually, you guys don't have the core condensation secret skill, do you? It was just a gimmick to trick us into coming here. What are you trying to do? My ghost city naturally has the secret skill of pill condensation. Saying this, Lu Se glanced at Shi Lanling. Shi Xinzi is the best proof. Everyone turned to look at Shi Lanling. Not bad. Everyone knew that Shi Lanling could refine pills. However, was Shi Lanling really willing to hand over the pill condensation technique? Shi Lanling stood up, her heavily made-up face revealing a flamboyant smile. Of course, as long as you cure the Ghost King, Lanling is willing to hand over the core condensation secret technique. I believe that everyone who has come here must really want this core condensation secret method. Saying that, her gaze sweeps over Mu Yin. Seeing that she was still unmoved, he sneered. Slut, keep pretending. You want to learn alchemy? You must be crazy. Otherwise, why would he rush to the Ghost Wind Valley? However, you will never have the chance. Since the Ghost City is really willing to use the secret skill of pill condensation as a reward, why are we still delaying? Hurry up and take us to treat the Ghost Lord. At this moment, even Dr. Song and Dr. Du seemed to have forgotten the unpleasantness from before as their eyes burned with passion. That was the core condensation secret technique. The Yinwu continent is so big, who knows how many practitioners, doctors, and alchemists there are. But those who could concoct pills were few and far between. Whoever could master the method of alchemy would be able to stand at the peak of the medical world and become a superior person. He even found a shortcut to transcending the tribulation and ascending. This was also the reason why Dr. Song and the others rushed over to treat the Ghost Lord even though they knew that the Ghost Wind Valley was dangerous. Lu Se, however, sneered and said unhurriedly, "There's no hurry. Before I let you treat the Ghost Lord, I still want to see if you have the real ability to treat the Ghost Lord. After all, the Ghost Lord is currently the most supreme person in our Ghost City. Not just any doctor is qualified to treat him." Dr. Song said anxiously, "If you don't let us treat the Ghost King, how do you know if we are qualified or not?" It's very simple. Lu Se looks around, and her gaze finally falls on Mayan. Mu Yin only feels a strong killing intent sweep over her body. They only heard Lu Se continue. As long as you can win against Shi Lanling and Shi Xinzi in terms of medicinal pills, then you will have the qualifications to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. In this case, I will naturally let you in to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. I beat Shirshianzi. Hearing this condition, many doctors frowned. However, there were also a few doctors, such as Dr. Song and Dr. Du, who revealed arrogant expressions. Although Shi Lanling was very famous, in terms of medical skills, they believed that they were much better than this little girl. Chapter 505. Hee. Shi Lanling sneers. Standing at the head of the table, she condescendingly looks down at them. Dr. Song, Dr. Du, I'm afraid you didn't hear it clearly. The competition that the Ghost King is talking about is for you to compete with me in alchemy. As she says that, she sweeps Mayan with a venomous and arrogant gaze. I forgot to tell you, the Ghost Lord's illness can't be cured by ordinary drafts and medical skills. Only elixirs can alleviate and truly cure it. If you want to go in and diagnose the Ghost Lord's illness, then first beat me in alchemy. Alchemy? Dr. Song says in disbelief. Are you kidding? If we could do alchemy, how could we possibly come all the way to the Ghost Wind Valley? These people who have come to the Ghost Wind Valley, which one of them isn't aiming for the secret method of pill condensation? If they could do alchemy, how could they possibly take this kind of risk? What's more, they still have to compete in alchemy with Shi Lanling, who had already made a name for herself 10 years ago. Lu Sei, Shi Lanling, are you playing with all of us? Lu Sei hooks up the corners of her lips, and the flesh on her ugly, pitted face immediately piles together, looking even more terrifying. She laughs sinisterly. Doctors, rest assured, since you're going to compete with Shirshianzi, you'll naturally have the skill of alchemy. Let us have the skill of alchemy? Could it be that you're going to make the secret method of pill condensation public now? Thinking of this possibility, each and every one of the doctors below becomes fiery. Lu Sei doesn't answer them, but claps her hands. Soon, a group of black-clothed ghost envoys come forward with trays. On each tray, there's a small black cup. There's also one in front of Mayan. She takes a look inside, and finds that inside that small cup, there's a black bug the size of a baby's fingernail. An unpleasant stench emanated from the little black bug's body. Just smelling it a little, Mayan immediately feels her stomach turning upside down. She immediately holds her breath. But as she looks at that black bug, her gaze becomes incomparably deep. That's because she already recognizes what it is. The foremost poison in the world, goo. It stinks. Ugh, what the hell is this thing? Why is it so disgusting? In front of Lu Sei, a small cup was also brought over. She didn't care at all. She grabbed the little black bug from the goblet and let it crawl on her dry and cracked skin. There's an intoxicated expression on her face. This is the Qi Goo. After taking it, you'll naturally have the ability to condense a Dan. In this way, you'll naturally be able to compete with Shirshianzi. Someone was still holding the small cup and examining it. Hearing Lu Sei's words, he immediately revealed a frightened expression, his hands trembling. The small cup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The originally quiet little black bug, after landing on the ground, immediately burrowed into that person's body. The seemingly fragile little worm crawled onto the man's skin and quickly burrowed into his flesh. It traveled along the skin and quickly reached the location of the heart. Ah, get lost. Get lost. Don't crawl into my body. Ara, help. Chapter 506. The doctor finally calms down, but his face is full of fright, his whole body shivering. Lu Sei, Dr. Chun, if you don't believe me, you can try refining the pill on the spot. As soon as her voice falls, someone immediately brings up a huge furnace. All kinds of herbs are placed next to the furnace, and there's also a specialized medicine boy helping to light the furnace fire. Dr. Chan is skeptical, but he still steps forward and starts to refine the pill. As the herbs slowly melt in the furnace, the doctor hesitates for a moment, activating his internal force, wanting to make the pill inside condense and take shape. At this moment, Mayan's pupils slightly contract. Ever since her spiritual root was reconstructed and she possessed spiritual power, she can see a lot of things that were originally invisible to the naked eye. For example, Right now, the chi goo inside Dr. Chin's body is still restless after he uses his internal force. The tiny, invisible bug is nibbling at Dr. Chin's heart little by little, sucking his flesh and blood. And what comes in return is that the internal force that Dr. Chin originally sent out from his palm has turned into energy similar to spiritual power. As this kind of pseudo-spiritual power is continuously sent into the pill furnace, the pill in the furnace really starts to slowly condense. And no one knows that in this process, the little black bug attached to Dr. Chin's heart has grown a size. This is using a human body as a sacrifice to feed the goo bug. Although for a short time, it gives people the ability to condense a pill, there will be a day when they will be bitten back by the goo bug. Finally, their heart will be completely eaten, their flesh and blood will be sucked dry, and they will die. Mayan's brows tightly knit together. Her gaze towards Lu Se is filled with graveness. This kind of method is really too insidious. At this moment, the pill furnace is emitting smoke in spirals, and the fragrance of medicine wafts. Dr. Chin impatiently steps forward to open the pill furnace. Seeing the pill lying inside, he stares blankly at first. Then he says with disbelief and ecstasy, "Success! I succeeded. I actually refined in pill. This time, it's really a stone that raises 1,000 ripples in the living room." All the doctors gather around to look at the pill. After confirming that it's really a first-grade nourishing chi pill, they are immediately dumbstruck. This goo really can give people alchemy skills. For a moment, everyone's scorching gazes turn towards the small goblet. The chi goo that made them fear and loathe just moments ago is now brimming with alluring magic. As long as I consume this goo worm, I can become an alchemist. Some people couldn't help but stretch their hands towards the small goblet. Dr. Wang, who was standing beside Mu Yin, also had a fiery expression on his face. He wished that he could immediately swallow the goo worm like Dr. Chun, so that he could immediately have the ability to refine pills. However, his hand had just stretched out when it was grabbed by a slender hand that was snow white like jade. The girl's light and sweet-sounding voice was neither light nor heavy. It slowly sounded, but it was like a morning bell, ringing in everyone's mind. The so-called goo worms need to be fed with flesh and poison to survive. May I ask Ghost King Lu, what is used to feed this chi goo? It's unknown when, but Mayan has already stood up from her seat, looking towards Lu Se's direction. Just now, Ghost King Lu said that as long as you win, you can always have the secret alchemy skill. In that case, what would happen to those who failed? After taking in the chi goo, can it still be taken out? As soon as these words came out, it was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. Chapter 507. It was only at this moment that everyone awoke from their burning desire for the alchemy's secret technique. He remembered how terrifying goo worms were. For a moment, everyone retracted their hands and avoided the small goblet like avoiding a snake or a scorpion. On the other hand, the joy on Dr. Chin's face faded and was replaced by fear. Shi Lanling grits her teeth and fiercely glares at Mayan. "Slut, mind your own business." Mu Yin is too lazy to care about her. She just stares at Lu Se. Lu Se didn't have the slightest intention of avoiding it. She laughed out loud and looked at everyone's gaze as if she was looking at ants that could be trampled to death at any time. "If you fail, of course, only death awaits you. I've spent a lot of time preparing these chi goo for you, and it wasn't until tonight that they were all ready. How can we waste it? If anyone loses to Shixianzi in alchemy, your flesh and blood will become fodder for the chi goo. To be able to help Bin Wang's lovely chi goo advance, it can also be considered your honor." Lu Se's malicious gaze turns towards Mayan, and she says in a rough voice, "I wonder if the Enchantress of Medicine is satisfied with this explanation? Looking at your delicate skin and tender flesh, I think my chi goo will certainly like you." "No, I don't want to eat the goo. I don't want to be eaten by the goo." Someone finally couldn't help but scream in horror. "Let me go. I don't want to treat the Ghost King, and I don't want any alchemy secret skill. Let me go." As he spoke, he madly rushed out of the hall. However, just as he reached the door, he was stopped by a ghost officer. "What do you want? Do you want to force me to consume the goo? I'm telling you, I'm a senior doctor. There are a lot of martial artists out there who would sell their lives for me. If you dare to touch me, I promise to raise your ghost city to the ground." Lu Se let out a low sigh. "Are you really giving up?" Of course it's true." A treacherous smile appeared on Lu Se's ugly face. "All right then, let him go. Our ghost city will not force anyone." Hearing Lu Se's words, the ghost messenger guarding the door immediately retreated to the side. After the doctor recovered from his shock, he thought that Lu Se had been frightened by him. He immediately revealed a complacent expression and swaggered out. As he left, he was still spitting out ruthless words. "Lu Se, Shi Lanling, just you wait. I will never let this matter rest." Everyone saw that he had really left the main hall safe and sound. A few doctors were tempted and wanted to follow them. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The doctor had just taken 10 steps out of the hall when he suddenly grabbed his own throat. His body was on the verge of collapse. A series of intermittent cracking sounds came from his throat. Then he swung round, swaying unsteadily. The lights outside the dark night palace shone faintly on his face. In an instant, the crowd let out screams of terror. Black holes appeared on his face. It was as if it had been corrupted by something. A thick, stinky, dark brown liquid flowed out of his gaping mouth. In just a short period of time, the senior doctor who had been elegant and graceful just a moment ago had unexpectedly become even more terrifying than Lu Se. He breathed his last. The entire hall was deathly silent. The next moment, someone asked with a trembling voice, What's going on?" Chapter 508. Apart from this hall, there is not a single living thing in the entire Ghost Wind Valley. As for the rest of you, as long as you take a step out of this hall, you will become exactly like him. It was indeed the poison smog. Mayan's complexion becomes more and more grave, and she can hear the thumping of her heart in her ears. She knows very well that nothing should happen to Diming Ju and the others, but she still can't stop worrying. He had already given the antidote to the poison smog to the 3 of them. They shouldn't be corroded by the poison smog, right? Meanwhile, Lu Se was already looking around from high above. She sneered. "Now, is there anyone else who wants to leave?" There was dead silence. "Hee, you should have been obedient from the start." Lu Se clapped her hands. "Since there are no objections, let's start the competition now." As she said that, she casually pointed. "Let's start with you." She was actually referring to Dr. Chun, who had just successfully concocted a pill. The pill he had just successfully refined was an inferior first-grade qi-nourishing pill. Shi Lanling held the pill he refined in her hand, her face full of disdain. "If you want to compete with me, you have to refine a second-rank pill. Otherwise, I won't bother to make a move. Did you hear that?" Lu Se looked at Dr. Chun. "Concoct medicinal pills of second rank and above?" No. It's my first time concocting pills. It's impossible for me to concoct a second-grade pill." Before he could finish his words, he was lifted up by the neck by the ghost messenger. "If you don't want to concoct pills, then throw you out of the hall." What was outside the hall? It was the poison smog that could turn a person into a corpse in an instant. "I concoct pills. I will concoct the pill now," Dr. Chin cried and crawled to the front of the furnace to start concocting the pill. After an hour, Dr. Chen had almost exhausted all of his qi, and Mayan also sees that his heart's blood is slowly being sucked away by the qi goo. His entire body became thinner at a visible speed. However, an hour later, there was a loud bang. The pill furnace exploded, and the pill concoction failed. This was inevitable. Even with the assistance of the qi goo, this is, after all, Dr. Chin's first time refining pills. How could he casually refine a second-grade elixir? Dr. Chin stared blankly at the exploding alchemy furnace. Soon after, she looked at Lu Se in fright, her whole body trembling like a sieve. The corners of Lu Se's mouth slowly pull up, revealing a mouthful of ghastly white teeth. That smile is really indescribably happy. Dr. Chin's alchemy has failed, then you're just a useless waste. Therefore, right now, you can become my lovely qi goo's food. Spare my life. Ah, A short and shrill scream came out of Dr. Chin's mouth, and then it stopped abruptly. He lay on the ground stiffly, his already skinny body shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eye sockets were sunken, and there was only a layer of skin covering his skeleton. He looked like a mummy. Then, at the location of his heart, a small black worm that was several times bigger bit through his flesh and clothes and burrowed out. Fluttering its wings, it flew to Lu Sei's hand and drilled into her body. Dr. Chin's heart, on the other hand, was empty. The crowd fell into a deathly silence once again. Even the ghost envoys of the ghost city, as well as Magistrate Lu, have unsightly expressions on their faces as they watch this scene. And all the invited doctors were even more frightened, their faces drained of blood, their legs trembling. All right, this one is already useless. Next, who should it be? Chapter 509. Only when she looks at Mayan does she suddenly meet a pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes. Not dodging or avoiding, but it gives her a kind of bone-chilling chill. Lu Sei's eyes slightly narrow, the muscles on her wrinkled and pockmarked face slightly tremble. It's this woman who killed her Xianji. Hee, she won't kill her so quickly. She must let her suffer the torment of fear and despair. Bit by bit, torture her to death. However, a dark light flashes through Lu Sei's eyes. She always feels that this woman has an energy that she's familiar with, but also frightening. What is it? Her gaze flits over Mayan, and finally falls on a person at random. Next, you. Don't I don't want to take that goo. Help. An hour later, there are already 3 corpses in the spacious main hall. Each of them has their flesh and blood sucked dry by the chi goo, their hearts gnawed away, dying incomparably miserable deaths. And among these 3 doctors, not a single one could successfully refine a second-level elixir. The entire hall is deathly still. Only Shi Lanling's insolent laughter echoes. Hee, you call yourselves famous doctors in vain, but you can't even refine a second-level elixir. If you're not trash, then what are you? She looks at everyone with eyes brimming with resentment and hatred. At this moment, that noble fairy who seemed to be above the common populace no longer exists. Since 3 days ago, when Di Mingju kicked her out of the house naked, many people in the Ghost Wind Valley had seen it. Shi Lanling not only hates Jun Mayan, but also everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley. If she lets these people of the Ghost Wind Valley go out alive, her reputation will really be ruined. Moreover, she's lost face in front of everyone, ridiculed, humiliated. Why can these people be high and mighty as famous doctors? She wants to see these people even more miserable than her, even worse than pigs and dogs. Especially Jun Mayan, that slut. Shi Lanling looks at Mayan and sees that her face no longer has a leisurely expression, but has a dignified expression. Her heart is really unspeakably carefree. This slut, seeing so many people die tragically, she's finally afraid. But it's useless to be afraid. Today, I will make you die without a burial ground. TSK, so many have already died. Who's next? Shi Lanling chuckles, then she suddenly turns her gaze towards Mayan, Jun Mayan, as the Shanshu of my ghost city, as well as the renowned Enchantress of medicine. Don't you want to contribute to our ghost king? Dr. Wang, who was standing next to Mu Yin, immediately changed his expression, and his whole body trembled. But he still couldn't help but tremble as he says, Dr. Jun is best at refining drafts, and she's so young, it's better not. Heh, if I don't let her do it, are you going to do it? Hearing Shi Lanling's question, Dr. Wang's face immediately turned pale. He didn't dare to say anything else. Mu Yin sneers and is about to step forward. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out, "This old man will compete with you." Mayan stares blankly as she sees Dr. Song striding forward. In her hand, she's still holding the small cup containing the chi goo. Seeing that he's about to eat that chi goo, Mayan promptly stops him. Dr. Song, you don't need to do it for me. Chapter 510. At your age, you actually have such godly medical skills, and can even refine such a heaven-defying draft. This shows that your potential is limitless. No matter how useless our old bones are, we won't let a little girl like you sacrifice herself before us. What Yinwu continent's practitioners and mortals need the most is the existence and continuation of doctors like you. Saying that, without waiting for Mayan to stop him, he directly swallows the qi gu in the small cup into his belly. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly contract. An indescribable emotion surged from her organs to her brain. Dr. Song has already walked forward with large strides. He coldly looks at Lu Se and Shi Longling. Elegant and holy Shixianzi, I spit on you. It turned out that she was just a black-hearted woman with a human face but a beast's heart. For a beast like you to be called a doctor, it's an insult to other doctors who save the dying and heal the injured. Old fart. All right. Since you don't want to live anymore, don't blame me for being impolite. Shi Lanling's entire face contorted in anger. With a wave of her hand, a ghost constable swiftly brought over her personal pill furnace. Dr. Song did not look at her again as he walked straight to his pill furnace. As the medicinal herbs were melted by the raging fire, the powerful Xian Qi in Dr. Song's body revolved, driving the medicinal concoction to fuse. Just like the doctors before him, Mayan can clearly see that the qi gu that's attached to his heart is nibbling away at his flesh little by little. Dr. Song's originally rosy complexion gradually turned pale as time passed. His eye sockets also began to sink in. This was because if he wanted to refine a second-grade elixir, he would need to consume more profound qi. And the more internal force it mobilizes, the more flesh and blood it will stimulate the qi gu to consume. But if he didn't consume a large amount of profound qi, it was impossible to condense elixirs of second grade and above. This was a vicious cycle that pushed people into a dead end. 2 hours later, a medicinal fragrance wafted out from the pill furnace in front of Dr. Song. And this fragrance made all the doctors in the hall restless. This is a second-grade Xian Yuan pill, and from the rich fragrance, it's at least a second-grade upper-grade pill. That's great. As expected of Dr. Song, he actually refined a second-grade medicinal pill. Almost at the same time, Shi Longling also succeeded in concocting pills. Compared to Dr. Song, who was thin and haggard after concocting pills, Shi Lanling's forehead was only slightly sweaty, but her skin was becoming increasingly light and transparent, radiating radiance. She looked at Dr. Song contemptuously, her face full of disdain. At this moment, a ghost messenger walked in front of Dr. Song and opened the pill furnace. There were 3 pills in the furnace. They were translucent, round, and fragrant. The ghost envoy picked up a pill, distinguishing it, then said in a clear voice, "Superior second grade, Xian Yuan pill. This is great. It really is a superior grade 2 pill. We won this time. We have hope." However, very quickly, the ghost messenger arrived in front of Shi Longling, picked up the pill in front of her, sniffed it, and tasted it. Then he said loudly, "Third-grade medium Xinyuan pill." In an instant, the noisy hall became deathly silent. The doctors who were overjoyed just a moment ago turned pale, and their faces were filled with despair. Dr. Song's body swayed, and he almost couldn't support himself to stand. Chapter 511. Lu Se also reveals an ambiguous smile, using a rough voice to say, "Since you failed in the alchemy competition, then Dr. Song, you can only become my Qi Gu's fodder." Dr. Song's pupils constricted slightly. There was obvious fear and shock in his eyes. Anyone who has seen with their own eyes that the Qi Gu has sucked the flesh and blood dry, the heart hollowed out of the corpse, there's no way they wouldn't be terrified. Soon, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. There was also the despair and coldness of his life force being sucked out bit by bit. Just as he was about to close his eyes and give up on life, suddenly, a hand grasped his wrist meridian. Dr. Song opened his eyes in surprise and saw a beautiful face right in front of him. Then, before he could react, the girl's calm voice came into his ears, "Dr. Song, I'm sorry." A pair of slender hands suddenly tore open his clothes. His already bony chest was exposed. One by one, the silver needles were pierced into his body. As more and more silver needles pierced in, the thick, profound energy seeped through the silver needles into his acupoints and tendons. Dr. Song actually felt the pain in his heart and the coldness in his body slowly recede. Then, a sharp pain came from the skin on his chest. The girl in front of him held a knife in her hand, and her movements were extremely clean and efficient as she cut open his chest. Then, he raised his hand and dropped the needle. By the time everyone reacted, Dr. Song could no longer hold on and collapsed to the ground. On Mu Yan's hand, there's already a black bug the size of an adult fingernail poking out with a silver needle. Chigu. The black insect was pierced by the silver needle. It struggled violently and made a strange, ear-piercing sound. However, as Mu Yin revolves her internal force, the silver needle bursts into a scorching flame. That Chigu is immediately burnt to ashes. Once again, the whole place was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Until Mayan throws away the silver needles, pats off the dust on her hands, and shows Lu Se a charming and provocative smile. So this is the Chigua? His tone was filled with disdain. Lu Se's gaze instantly became incomparably cold, her whole body emitting a powerful pressure and murderous aura. That almost suffocating pressure and murderous aura caused the doctors who had just been wild with joy to once again sink into a state of panic. Mu Yan's expression also becomes serious. This time, it was not an illusion. She clearly felt that this Lu Se's cultivation was higher than hers. Even the aura emanating from her body is far higher than that of the Yinwu continent, just like the pressure that occasionally leaks from Dimingju and the others. And at this moment, Lu Se slowly, with a hoarse and unpleasant-to-hear voice, said, "Miss June's bare-handed medical skill in taking the goo really makes me gasp in amazement. Since the Enchantress of Heaven has such ability, then from what I see, the next person to compete will be you. Shixianzi, what do you think?" Shi Lanling immediately laughed. "Good, very good. June Mayan, I've waited for this moment to compete with you for a very long time." Magistrate Liu, who had been silent all this while, finally couldn't help but step forward. With a trembling voice, he says, "Yamadaran, although Miss June doesn't know alchemy, the godly drafts that she refines have better effects than elixirs. Moreover, her medical skills are truly superb. Few people can match her." Chapter 512. Hearing Magistrate Liu mercilessly say that she's inferior to Mayan, Shi Lanling's face is filled with malevolent anger. Lu Se's expression was still indifferent. Her cold gaze looked towards Magistrate Liu, and the corners of her mouth lifted, revealing a terrifying smile. "Is that so? The drafts refined by the Enchantress are really better than elixirs?" "Yes, yes. This subordinate dares to guarantee it with my life." When Magistrate Liu hears Lu Se say that, he thinks that she's been moved by his words and promptly says, "The drafts that Miss June refines sell much better than Shixianzi's elixirs in the Ghost City. Her medical skills are also acknowledged to be very good. If it's her, she will definitely be able to save the Ghost King." As soon as Magistrate Liu finished speaking, he was suddenly grabbed by the neck. Then, a cloud of black mist enveloped his entire face. A mournful howl came out from Magistrate Liu's mouth, and his face turned blue and purple at a speed visible to the naked eye. His skin was also covered with potholes. Lu Se swung her hand, and threw Magistrate Liu, who had already fainted, onto the ground. He sneered, "If this king says that only pills can treat the Ghost King, then only pills can treat the Ghost King. Who do you think you are to dare to make irresponsible remarks in front of this prince? Since you want to use your life as a guarantee, this king will fulfill your wish." Shi Lanling was originally worried that Lu Se would really believe that June Mayan was stronger than her, but when she sees this scene, she immediately laughs heartily. "June Mayan, did you hear that? If you want to save the Ghost Lord, you can only use alchemy. Even if you can refine godly drafts, drafts are only drafts in the end. How can they compare to elixirs?" Her heavily made-up face was filled with unbridled pride and hatred. It's as if he can already see Mu Yan's miserable appearance of the Chigu, sucking away her flesh and blood, dying without a whole corpse. Dr. Song struggled free from the despair of death and was ecstatic that he had survived the terrifying goo worm. But Lu Se and Shi Lanling's shamelessness was like a stick to his head, making him so angry that his whole body trembled. These scum, they didn't even look for a doctor to treat the Ghost Lord. What they wanted was for all the doctors to be eaten by the goo. I'll compete with you. I'll compete with you again. Dr. Song doesn't care about his weakness from losing too much blood. He shouts loudly while tugging at Mu Yan's sleeves. Lowering his voice, he says, "Little girl, quickly leave this place. I just realized that you're not afraid of the poison smog. I'll help you hold them back. You leave quickly." Shi Lanling sneered and looked at Dr. Song with disdain. "Just look at your half-dead appearance. What right do you have to compare with me? Without the chi goo in your body, you can't even condense your Dan. So what right do you have to compare with me? Then let this old man compete with you." "No, I'll compete with you." "Shi Lanling," Lu say, "do you really think that us doctors are easy to bully, even if it's eaten up by the chi goo? So what? This old man will compete with you." Dr. Du, Dr. Jiang, Dr. Li, each and every one of them, doctors of virtue and prestige, stand in front of Mayan. Just now, they were still filled with fear of death and goo worms. But at this moment, they were all filled with righteous indignation, filled with the courage to face death calmly. It wasn't that he wasn't afraid of death, it wasn't that he didn't want to live. But they know that today, the Ghost Wind Valley won't let any one of them off. And these old guys, if they die, then they die. Chapter 5:13. Today, if they all die here, Yinwu continent's medical science will fall back by at least 30 years. And the cause of all this is their greed for the secret method of pill condensation. But at this very moment, Mayan, who has taken out the goo with her bare hands, lets them see hope. Such a little girl who's not even 20 years old, but has such godly medical skills. She can even refine drafts that can bring the dead back to life. Such a rare seedling, a spark that can raise Yinwu continent's medical skills by a whole realm. How could they allow her to extinguish it? So, at this moment, all the doctors who were once greedy for life and afraid of death stand up, standing in front of Mayan. Even Dr. Wang, who once ridiculed Mayan, stands in front of Mayan with trembling legs. They spread open their not-so-strong arms, protecting Mayan behind them like an eagle protecting a chick. Mayan stares at this scene in a daze, and she can't help but reach out and press her chest, at the place where her heart should be filled with hatred and be sealed in ice. At this moment, she doesn't know why, but there's a surge of warmth. This warmth washes through every cell in her body, making her feel sour and ashamed, but also indescribably moved. Mayan takes a deep breath and pushes aside the doctors in front of her. She smiles faintly at Shi Lanling and Lu say, "All right, I'll compete with you in alchemy. Little girl, don't be impulsive." That's right, that Shi Lanling, even old Song couldn't beat her. How could you be her opponent? Dr. Jun, you're good at drafts and medical skills. There's no need to compete with that despicable woman in alchemy. She's already been immersed in alchemy for nearly 10 years, and you're not even 20 yet. How could you possibly be her opponent? The doctors surrounding Mayan are all anxious, each and every one of them earnestly advising her. "Little girl, don't try to be brave. It's better for us old farts to risk our lives than for a little girl like you to die. You'd better run away quickly." Mayan looks at the faces anxiously scolding her. Although they're speaking harsh words, they're full of worry for her. Her brows slightly curve, revealing a respectful smile, and she slowly bows, "Thank you seniors for your care. However, this competition belongs to me and Shi Lanling. So I ask the seniors to believe me. I will win." Everyone was taken aback. It wasn't because when the girl in front of him smiled, it was as dazzling as the sun, more beautiful than 100 flowers blooming. It's because her smile is brimming with self-confidence and unruliness, as if Lu say, "Chi Gu, Shi Lanling," in her eyes, they're nothing more than insignificant ants. Shi Lanling doesn't see Mayan's expression. Hearing her words, she immediately looks contemptuous. "Jun Mayan, why are you still talking nonsense? Still not coming over to take the chi goo and compete with me? I can't wait to see the appearance of you being gnawed into a dried corpse by the chi goo after you lose to me." Ha ha ha. Mayan brushes her clothes and slowly turns around. His peach blossom eyes were sparkling and bottomless, but there was not a trace of panic in them. Her gaze sweeps over Lu Se and Shi Lonling. Only then does she carelessly say, "There's no need to take the Qi Gu. If you want to compete in alchemy, then let's directly start." Hearing this, Shi Lonling and Lu Se were both startled. Chapter 514. Shi Lonling sneers. "Won't take the Qi Gu? Relying on a waste like you? Without the help of the Qi Gu, can you refine an elixir? Stop dreaming? Or do you think that if you don't take the Qi Gu, even if you lose, you can still escape this disaster?" Hee, Junmayan, you're too naive. I advise you to take the Gu immediately. Maybe you'll still have the qualifications to compete with me. Otherwise, you'll only die more unsightly. Saying that, she waves her hand. Immediately, a ghost envoy carries a small black goblet, handing it over to Mayan. Mayan has a smile that isn't a smile, not moving. I said no need. So no need. Ghost King Lu only asked us to refine elixirs. He didn't say that we must take the Qi Gu to refine elixirs. That's not up to you. Shi Lonling gnashes her teeth. I don't care what kind of trick you're planning, but today, you have to eat this Gu. Even if you don't want to eat it, you still have to eat it. Come, stuff the Qi Gu into her mouth. I want to see how she can still be arrogant. Hearing that, the ghost envoy carrying the small goblet deftly grabs the little black bug inside. She also doesn't know what kind of special treatment he's done to it. When the Gu touches his skin, it unexpectedly doesn't directly burrow inside, but remains quiet, like it's unconscious. That ghost envoy holds the Qi Gu, slowly approaching Mayan. As the Qi Gu gets closer and closer to Mayan, it suddenly seems to come alive, violently bouncing in the ghost envoy's hand. It's like Mayan's flesh and blood is fiercely attracting it. Lu Se's eyes brighten. Looking at Mayan, besides hatred, there's also a trace of suspicion. This is the first time she's felt her Gu being so excited. Even the mother Gu in her body seems to be affected, stirring restlessly inside her body. There's definitely something special in this woman's flesh and blood that's attracting them. Seeing that the pitch-black, frightening Gu is about to stick to Mayan's snow-white, sparkling skin, Mayan sneers, her fingertips slightly drawing a line in the air like a wave. In a split second, a silver light flashes, and there seems to be a faint hum of a zither. Then, there's only a piercing sound, and the Qi Gu that was still bouncing just a moment ago is cut into two in the blink of an eye. Almost at the same instant that the Qi Gu is severed, a blue flame sprays from the Gu's body. The Gu worm was burnt to ashes. Even the ghost envoy's fingers were burnt black, but he only reacted after a long while, letting out a blood-curdling scream. Shi Lonling has been waiting for Mayan's frightened expression after swallowing the Qi Gu. Who would have thought that it would be so easily resolved by this woman? Her face instantly twisted, and she roared in a stern voice, "Trash! What are you still standing there for? So many Qi Gu. I don't believe she can escape all of them. Hurry up and attack." When the ghost messengers heard the order, they rushed forward like a swarm of bees. Everyone was holding a Gu worm in their hands. Mayan chuckles and flips her wrist. In a split second, a simple and lustrous zither with a flowing luster appears in her hand. Her slender hands lightly plucked the strings of the zither. The music of the armored horses resounded throughout the hall. Sound blades shot out at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Mu Yin knows better than anyone that if these Gu worms fall to the ground, they will drill everywhere. Even if he was not afraid, the other doctors would definitely suffer. Therefore, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of the zither turns into blades, and 100 of them shoot out. Chapter 515. In the blink of an eye, the ghost envoys who had just fiercely rushed over, each and every one of them clutches their burnt hands and cries out in pain. And the Qi Gu that had just frightened everyone, after a short moment, has completely turned into fine powder. The whole audience is deathly still. Everyone's eyes are focused on Mayan. The doctors are shocked, ecstatic. The ghost envoys are fearful, aghast. But Shi Lonling and Lu Se are completely and utterly in disbelief. Especially Lu Se. That terrifying face of hers is now completely twisted together. Those pair of turbid eyes seem like they are about to fall out of their empty sockets. My Chi-gu. Junmayan, you slut. You killed my Shinji, and now you've even killed all my Chi-gu. Good, good. They can't let you take the Chi-gu. Then let me personally feed it to you. As soon as her voice falls, Lu Se opens her mouth. The next moment, she sees an ugly black-red bug that's several times bigger than the other Chi-gu, crawling out of her mouth. Lu Se grabs that bug, and her figure suddenly turns into an afterimage, heading towards Mayan. This time, Mayan's expression becomes extremely grave. The Tianimo chain in her hand stands upright, 5 fingers suddenly vibrating on the strings. The sound of the zither abruptly rises, like a hurricane engulfing the waves, rushing straight to the sky. Lu Se is almost about to rush in front of Mayan, but she suddenly feels her body colliding with an invisible wall. Her entire body was bounced away. The Shin musician's new second-level skill, divine hands weave the heavens. Through the sound of the zither, it drives the heaven and earth's vitality in the air, forming a protective barrier in a short period of time, exhausting all internal force or spiritual power within the body, lasting for 3 breaths. Lu Se is bounced back by that sound wall, and she continuously retreats 3 steps before she can stand firm. She suddenly looks at Mayan, her eyes filled with bewilderment. Jun Mayan is a musician? But such a powerful sound wall. Is it really something that a musician of the Yinwu continent can achieve? A treacherous light constantly flickers in Lu Se's eyes. As she prepares to attack again, a voice suddenly rings out from outside the main hall. Ghost King Lu Se, what do you want to do to the future Dark Lord's wife? Before her voice falls, she sees Han Ye's figure walking out from the thick, black fog. The poison smog wrapped around his body, but it didn't seem to have any effect on him. Han Ye goes straight to Mayan's side and slightly bows towards her. Miss June? Jun said that he has something to take care of, and let this subordinate protect you first. Mu Yin sees that Han Ye is unscathed. Hearing his words, her heart immediately relaxes. As expected, Di Mingju and the others are safe and sound. Han Ye turns to look at Lu Se, his eyes cold. Ghost King Lu Se, you have offended your superiors. How should you be punished? Lu Se narrowed her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. Shi Lanling immediately sneered. Apart from the Dark Lord that appeared when the Ghost City was just founded 1,000 years ago, no Dark Lord has appeared since then. You actually said that this woman is the future Dark Lord's wife? What a joke. Heh. Han Ye scoffs. He suddenly took out a black token from his bosom. The token looked very ordinary. There was no radiance or profound chi surrounding it. But as soon as the token appeared, the surrounding ghost envoys seemed to be possessed. Involuntarily, they knelt down and shouted, "Welcome, Supreme Nether." Even Shi Lanling and Lu Se didn't seem to be able to control themselves, and they kneeled down. It's just that before Lu Se's knees completely hit the ground, she suddenly sobers up. Chapter 5:16. How is this possible? Didn't the Dark Lord's decree disappear 1,000 years ago? Han Ye says, Now, do you still have any doubts about the existence of the Dark Lord? Lu Se's complexion turns green and white. Her eyes are filled with dread, unable to say a word. Han Ye puts away the Dark Lord's decree, and the kneeling ghost envoys and Shi Lanling regain their freedom in a split second. Shi Lanling's eyes brighten all of a sudden, her face full of worship and infatuation. So Di Jun is the founder of the Ghost City, the Dark Lord. No wonder that man is so handsome and powerful, making her deeply infatuated with him almost the first time she saw him. But as it happens, such a great man actually fancies Jun Mayan, this slut who has already lost her chastity. Instead, he humiliates and dislikes her in every possible way. No. It's not that the Dark Lord dislikes her, but because of Jun Mayan's interference, the Dark Lord misunderstands her. That's right, it's like this. As long as she gets rid of Jun Mayan, as long as she lets the Dark Lord clearly see Jun Mayan's fickle, dirty, and ugly nature, she believes that the Dark Lord will definitely like her instead. Shi Lanling suppresses her excitement and stands up, suddenly saying in a loud voice, Even if the Dark Lord's existence is proven, it still can't prove that this woman is the future wife of the Dark Lord. Moreover, Junmayan, you just promised me that you would compete with me in alchemy. Don't tell me you're going back on your word now? Mayan was originally still immersed in the fact that Di Mingju is actually the Ghost City's Dark Lord, not coming back to her senses. Hearing Shi Lanling's words at this time, she can't help but curl up the corner of her lips. That's right. I promised to compete with you in alchemy. If I win, I'll be allowed to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. Isn't that right? She's answering Shi Lanling's words, but she's looking at Ghost King Lu Se. Lu Se nods. That's right. As long as you beat Shi Xinzi in alchemy and prove that you have the ability to treat the Ghost Lord, I will naturally let you in to treat the Ghost Lord. If Miss June can't refine Dawn, or can't even beat Shi Xinzi in alchemy, then it proves that you can't treat the Ghost Lord. Even if you're the Dark Lord's wife, you're still not qualified to treat the Ghost Lord. Mu Yin nodded. All right, then let's start the competition. Shi Lanling glares at her, faintly asking, you really won't take the Qi Gu and want to compete with me in alchemy? But isn't this too boring? Why don't we make a bet? I don't know if you dare or not, Junmayan. Mu Yin raises an eyebrow. Oh? What's the bet? Shi Lanling chuckled softly. It's just that this smile doesn't have the slightest bit of immortal elegance and otherworldliness. On the contrary, it's brimming with gloominess and maliciousness. If you lose, then cripple your own cultivation and marry that ghost slave at Ghost King Lu's side. Henceforth, you'll serve the Ghost City forever. What do you think? Saying this, she pointed at the person behind Lu Se. Lu Se pointed at a man standing behind her. His clothes were also embroidered with the symbol of the Ghost City, but it was different from the other ghost envoys. He's not a ghost envoy of the Ghost City, but a ghost slave deployed by Lu Se. Almost everyone in the room had noticed him in some way, because this ghost slave's appearance was extremely ugly, even comparable to Lu Se's. Chapter 517. What nonsense are you talking about? Han Yi suddenly explodes, roaring as he rushes towards the ghost slave and Shi Lanling. But Mayan pulls him back. From their conversation, Mayan knows that Han Yi and the others can't get too involved in the matters of the Yinwu continent. Even more so, they can't casually harm the people of the Yinwu continent. Otherwise, they will suffer the backlash of heaven and earth. The doctors on the side also start cursing all at once. Shi Lanling, don't go too far. Competing in alchemy is just competing in alchemy. You actually came up with such an insidious scheme to trick a little girl. You still have no shame. Humph, I remember now. A few nights ago, Shi Lanling went to seduce the man naked. He must be Dr. June's husband. This person must be jealous of Dr. June. That's why he came up with such a despicable method. Little girl, you mustn't agree with him. At this time, Lu Se's gloomy and frightening face finally shows a smile. What? Isn't Miss June very confident in her alchemy level? Now you don't dare to gamble? Since Miss June also thinks that she will lose and doesn't have the guts to gamble, then I think it's better to forget about it. I just didn't expect that the so-called future Dark Lord's wife would turn out to be such a cowardly person, even throwing away the Dark Lord's face. Shi Lanling grits her teeth and sneers. Junmayan, who do you think you are? How could you be worthy of that person? Since you don't dare to gamble with me, I think you should obediently leave Dark Lord's side. A waste like you, how could you be worthy of Dark Lord? She hasn't finished speaking when a girl's low, sweet-sounding laughter suddenly resounds in the hall. This laughter makes Shi Lanling and Lu Se, who are in the middle of provoking her, stare blankly. Soon after, they see Mayan raise her head, her beautiful peach blossom eyes rippling with a mocking arc. You guys really have a lot of nonsense. It's just that, after talking for so long, you're only talking about what I should do if I lose? Shi Lanling, what if you lose? What price are you going to pay? Shi Lanling stares blankly at first, then she laughs out loud. I lose? You think I would lose? Junmayan, where do you get the confidence to think that I would lose to a waste who has never done alchemy? Mu Yan's expression is unspeakably calm. How do you know that I don't know alchemy? Haha, if you really know how to refine pills, you wouldn't have asked me to refine the golden pill of 9 orifices back then. Junmayan, do you think that you can bluff me? Do you take me for an idiot? On the side, Hanyi couldn't help but roll his eyes. If you're not an idiot, then who is? Mayan is still calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos. She says unhurriedly, since Shirshinzi is so confident, then let's do it this way. If Shirshinzi loses, I won't ask you to let the Chigu suck your flesh and blood dry, to die so unsightly. I just want you to cripple your own meridians and never practice medicine or alchemy. What do you think? Sure, Lanling's expression changed. Because Mayan's expression is really too calm, too confident. Could it be that this woman really knew alchemy? No. Absolutely impossible. The dark cloud spirit flower was so precious, and this woman wanted to attract the monarch's attention. If she really knew how to refine pills, why would she let him refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices? Moreover, in the Ghost City, June Mayan's expression didn't seem quite right when she mentioned alchemy. She obviously didn't know how to refine pills. Chapter 5:18. The rules of the competition were simple. The Ghost Wind Valley provided 2 sets of exactly the same medicinal herbs. There should be as many types of medicinal herbs as possible, and most of them were valuable and rare medicinal herbs. Using these herbs, Mayan and Shi Lanling can almost refine any kind of elixir that they want to refine. Shi Lanling looks at Mayan contemptuously and takes the lead to walk in front of the pill furnace. Her hands were slender and beautiful, but at this moment, her nails were dyed bright red with balsam juice. When he picked up the medicinal ingredients beside him and placed them into the pill furnace, his fingernails shone with sparks, as if his hands were stained with blood. It was exceptionally demonic. As the first and second herbs were sent into the furnace, Shi Lanling's movements became faster and faster. She didn't hesitate or pause in choosing the medicinal herbs and how much she put in. Even if those doctors hated her to the core, they couldn't help but marvel at her proficiency in refining pills. Just then, Shi Lanling turned her head to look at Mu Yin. Seeing that she still hadn't started and was staring at her, she couldn't help but sneer. June Mayan, I thought you had some ability to think that you could beat me? So you were planning to secretly learn the pill condensation secret method while I was refining pills. Ha ha ha. Just give up. If the method of condensing pills could be learned so easily, it wouldn't be called a secret technique. Bitch, you're definitely going to lose today. Shi Lanling continues the movements of her hands as she presumptuously taunts Mayan. However, Mu Yan's expression did not change at all. He looked at Shi Lanling curiously. She was indeed curious. Logically speaking, alchemy required spiritual power to condense the pill. This was also the key point that she had figured out after her spirit root had been reconstructed. But in the Yinwu continent, there is no spiritual power. She really wanted to know what method Shi Lanling was going to use to condense the pill. After ridiculing Mayan for a while, Shi Lanling proudly sneers and no longer pays attention to her. Instead, he turned around and continued to concoct pills. As the flame was driven by her, the herbs began to merge. Finally, it was the last and most important step, core formation. Why is this flame blue and green? Suddenly, the surrounding crowd exclaimed. This was because they discovered that after Shi Lanling injected profound qi into the pill furnace, the flames in the cauldron began to change color. Shi Lanling's skin also became increasingly sparkling and translucent as the pill fire changed color. Seeing this scene, Mu Yin slightly narrowed his eyes, his expression indescribably dark and gloomy. After a short quarter of an hour, a faint medicinal fragrance wafted out of the pill furnace and spread throughout the hall. The doctors, who are already worried about Mayan, are now even more restless. This smell? Could it be a high-grade, third-grade medicinal pill? But it doesn't seem right. I once bid for a third-grade elixir in the Ghost City. This medicinal fragrance is even more mellow and enticing than a third-grade elixir. No, it can't be. It's even richer than a third-grade pill. Could it be a fourth-grade pill? Shi Lanling raised her chin and proudly stood up. Soon, a ghost slave came forward, opened the alchemy furnace, and took out 2 jade-white elixirs. Looking at the quality of the 2 pills and the medicinal fragrance they emitted, Yizichen's heart skipped a beat. All the doctors' faces turned ashen, and their eyes were filled with despair. 2 pills. She actually refined 2 pills in one go. This medicinal pill is only a high-grade 3rd grade, right? It can't be the 4th rank, right? Chapter 519. Because if it's 3rd grade, then Mayan might still have a fighting chance. But if it's a 4th grade elixir, that's 4th grade. Even the best elixir that Master Jianfeng of the Heavenly Road sect can refine is only 4th grade. Moreover, the success rate isn't high. Usually, only one can be refined in one furnace. But Shi Lanling has refined 2 4th grade elixirs in one go. How could the doctors not feel despair for Mayan? Maybe it's because of that bet. This time, the one who comes forward to examine the elixirs isn't an ordinary ghost envoy. Instead, it's the ugly ghost slave at Lu Sei's side. He steps forward in large strides, takes one of the elixirs and smells it, then carefully examines it. Soon after, he cracks his mouth, revealing yellow teeth. He laughs cruelly, a 4th grade vein shield Dan. Taking this elixir can withstand an all-out attack from an early pre-celestial practitioner. As soon as these words come out, the whole audience goes silent. Soon after, the ghost envoys burst into an uproar. It's actually a 4th grade vein shield Dan, able to withstand an all-out attack from an early pre-celestial practitioner. That's a real life-saving elixir. Shi Xinzi is truly worthy of being the most famous genius alchemist in the Yanwu continent. She's only in her early 30s, yet she's already reached the level of a 4th grade alchemist. It really leaves people in the dust. Exclamations of admiration rush towards Shi Lanling like a tide. Even those doctors who were just speaking ill of her, each and every one of them have pale complexions, their faces filled with despair. They can't say another word. Shi Lanling only feels that the resentment that she's accumulated over the past 3 days has been thoroughly vented in this moment. She darkly looks at Mayan and mockingly says, "Jun Mayan, you've been watching for so long. Have you learned my secret method of pill condensation? Hee, if you haven't learned it, do you want me to demonstrate it to you again?" Mayan deeply looks at her, her eyes carrying a trace of understanding, a trace of astonishment, and a trace of pity. Shi Lanling seems to be infuriated by that trace of pity in Mayan's eyes. Her complexion suddenly changes, sneering, "What are you looking at? Jun Mayan, even if the drafts you refine are indeed first-rate, this is alchemy. Do you think you can learn it just by looking? If it was really that easy, there wouldn't be so few people in the entire continent who could concoct pills. I advise you to give up now. Don't waste our time. I see that the sky outside is about to brighten. Just in time. I can let Ghost King Lu preside over your wedding." The ghost slave on the side cracked his mouth again at the right time, looking at Mayan's eyes full of lust. Perhaps it was because his mouth was cracked wider this time. So not only did he reveal 2 rows of dark yellow teeth, but he also revealed the bright red flesh that was stuck in between his teeth. "Madam Enchantress, this servant is very much looking forward to being able to consummate our marriage with you." Han Yi couldn't help but unsheath the long sword in his hand. A cold chill filled the entire hall. "I dare you to say it again." The strong, murderous aura made the ghost slave's face change, and he retreated to the side with a smile. At this time, Lu Sei comes forward, saying with a smile that isn't a smile, "Han Yi Darren, there's no need to get angry." Miss June herself agreed to the bet. "You wouldn't want to go back on your word when things come to a head, would you?" Saying that, he looks at Mayan, his gaze deep and serene. "Miss June, I advise you to obediently take the Chigu if you really want to win. That way, you might still have a fighting chance." Chapter 520. Mayan's fingers gently pluck the Tian Mo Chin. There was a sudden clashing sound. A cold light flashes, and that Chigu has already fallen from the air, splitting into 2 pieces. Disregarding Lu Sei's unsightly complexion, Mayan waves her hand, and those 2 burning Chigu immediately fly into the Dan furnace. It was one with the fire. She leisurely sat down in front of the pill furnace and unhurriedly threw the herbs into the furnace one by one. Unhurriedly, he said, "Whether I will lose or not, how will I know if I don't try?" Lu Sei fiercely glares at Jun Mayan. There's an indescribable hatred in her eyes. Shi Lanling suddenly sneered. "I thought you had some kind of ability, Turns out you really learned my alchemy from start to finish. Ha, I want to see how you're going to condense the pill in a while. As soon as he said that, everyone noticed. The herbs and quantities that Mayan has chosen are exactly the same as Sher Lanling's. This action caused the surrounding doctors to reveal anxious expressions. On the contrary, the people of the ghost city are sneering one by one, full of disdain. So she really doesn't know how to refine pills. To actually dare to compete with Shirshinzi in alchemy, he simply doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Lord Ghost Slave, you are so lucky. After today, such a lovely and charming woman will be yours. The ghost slave kept laughing, which made the faces of the doctors at the side pale. Finally, the processing and placement of the medicinal herbs were completed. Under the burning of the flames, the herbs began to melt. The next step was to inject Xianqi and start to condense the pill. At least half of the people in the hall are waiting to see Mayan make a fool of herself. But to everyone's surprise, Mu Yin didn't place her hand in front of the pill furnace and pour her internal force into it. Instead, she picks up the Tian Mo Chin on the side and begins to gently pluck the strings. Everyone was dumbfounded. They did not understand what she was trying to do. After Sher Lanling stared blankly for a moment, she suddenly laughed and said, "I've heard of playing the lute to a cow, but I've never heard of playing the lute to a pill furnace. June Mayan, don't tell me that you think that after hearing your zither music, those herbs will have a great spiritual nature and condense on their own?" Ha 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 ha. The people around Sher Lanling all laughed out loud. Almost everyone thinks that Mu Yin is struggling on her deathbed. He had never heard of anyone being able to refine pills through playing the zither. However, as the sound of the zither reverberated between heaven and earth, the flames in the cauldron jumped more and more fiercely. Furthermore, it was faintly emitting a crystal-clear silver light. As for the medicinal herbs that had originally melted, they actually began to show signs of solidification. How is this possible? How could he drive the alchemy fire to condense the herbs by playing the zither? Can't you feel it? Dr. June's zither music contains internal force. Could it be? Could it really be possible to condense a pill through the sound of the zither? The arrogant smile on Sher Lanling's face froze in an instant. When the doctors saw this scene, all of them revealed looks of surprise and joy. I heard that Dr. June is also known as the music doctor because when she treats people, she can use the sound of the zither to expel the pain. I didn't expect her to be able to use the sound of the zither to refine medicine. This is really a marvelous skill, a marvelous skill. Sher Lanling unwaveringly stared at the slowly condensing pill in the pill furnace, her eyes about to split open. Impossible. How is that possible? How could this slut condense a core just by playing the zither? Before he could finish his sentence, Chapter 521. The Dan furnace seems to be unable to withstand some powerful energy as it keeps trembling. Then, without waiting for everyone to react, there's a loud rumbling sound. The whole furnace bursts open, sparks flying everywhere. The people in the main hall are somewhat stunned for a moment. Sher Lanling's incredulous voice comes to an abrupt halt. After a moment of silence, she suddenly bursts into unbridled laughter. Ha ha ha! The furnace exploded. It actually exploded. June Mayan, you lost, she said. Without the secret method of core condensation, just relying on internal force, how could June Mayan succeed? Just now, using the sound of the zither to drive the refining process, that slut was just bluffing. The doctors look at the broken pieces of the Dan furnace. Each and every one of their faces is filled with despair. It's over. It's really over this time. Just now, they really thought that Mayan could succeed. But the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Only Mayan's expression hasn't changed in the whole audience, her fingers still gently plucking on the Tian Mo Chin. Vigorous internal force lingers at her fingertips, sending it to the Tian Mo Chin. There was also a streak of energy that could not be seen with the naked eye. As the internal force slowly seeps into the Tian Mo Chin. That's spiritual power. Haha, ghost slave, what are you still staring at? From now on, June Mayan is your person. Sher Lanling reveals a tyrannical smile and sinisterly says, Wait until her meridians are destroyed. How you want to play with her, how you abuse her, it's all your freedom." Hearing that, the ghost slave's pair of turbid yellow eyes shine brightly. His tongue licks his lips, his cheeks full of tiny particles tremble slightly because of excitement. Step by step, he walks towards Mayan, Madam Enchantress. A moment of spring night is worth 1,000 gold. Since you and I are already husband and wife, I don't think we should wait any longer. Now, follow me to the bridal chamber. Get lost. You disgusting beast. Dr. Song suddenly steps forward, his body still tottering, but he suddenly releases his whole body's pressure. As long as I'm still alive, I won't let your dirty hands touch June Mayan. Several doctors risk their lives, wanting to stand in front of Mayan. But Han Ye's movements are faster than them. He unsheathed his sword and firmly pressed it against the ghost slave's chest. He sneered, "If you have the ability, take another step forward." He actually dared to covet the future mistress of their polar domain. He was really tired of living. Lu Se sneers, "Han Yi Darren, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose. What are you doing? Even if you're the subordinate of the Dark Sovereign, you can't be unreasonable." If Dark Zun and Han Yi Darren really want to use their power to oppress people, I'm afraid that from now on, Dark Zun's prestige in the Ghost City will completely vanish. Shi Lanling immediately echoed. June Mayan was the one who agreed to the bet. Are you going to go back on your words now that you've lost? The atmosphere on this side was tense, and everyone was ready to strike. Ah dash. Suddenly, Dr. Wang's exclamation came from the direction where Mu Yin was playing the zither. Pill condensation? She's still in the middle of pill condensation. The pill refinement isn't over yet. What? Are you kidding me? The pill furnace has already exploded. How can it still be condensing pills? This shout immediately attracted everyone's attention. No one believes that the pill furnace has already exploded, so it's still possible to continue refining pills. However, the next scene that comes into view subverts everyone's imagination. Chapter 522. He saw that under the residue of the exploded pill furnace, there were still sporadic flames leaping about. Just now, no one paid any attention to these flames, thought they would go out at once. However, upon closer inspection, they discovered that not only were the flames not extinguished, but they were also burning. Instead, it seemed to be wrapped in a layer of gentle silver flames. With the melodious sound of the zither and the burning of the fire, the dregs of the medicine were slowly solidifying. At this moment, it had already begun to take the shape of a pill. He had condensed the core. He had actually condensed a pill. Ding dong. Mu Yan's fingertips turned lightly, and the sound of the zither suddenly became clear and loud. In the next moment, an even more dazzling silver light enveloped the pills, plating them with a layer of silver. Then, a rich and intoxicating medicinal fragrance wafted out. Bit by bit, it seeped into everyone's nostrils and even pores. Hiss! What is this smell? It's so fragrant. I've never smelled a medicinal pill that smells so good. I really want to swallow that pill into my stomach right now. Smelling this medicinal fragrance, I can feel the profound energy in my body boiling. Amidst the rising and falling sounds of discussion, Mu Yan's zither music slowly faded away. The flames in the residue of the cauldron also slowly died out. However, there were more than a dozen silver lights that flew up like meteors and landed in front of Mu Yan. Mu Yan reaches out and grabs it, then slowly spreads it out. Everyone could only see a dozen black pills lying on her palm. There was a deathly silence in the hall, and even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. After a long time, a thunderous applause and exclamations of praise erupted. It's done. It's really done. There's no need for that disgusting chigu. It can also be refined into elixirs. Dr. Song and the others are all flushed with excitement, surrounding Mayan in the middle. Just now, they were really breaking out in a cold sweat for Mayan. He was afraid that this young lady with a bright future would really have her meridians destroyed and be tainted by that ugly beast. He had never expected that she would actually refine it into a pill. Furthermore, It was done in such an unimaginable way after the furnace had exploded. Who had ever heard of someone being able to control flames and refine elixirs without a cauldron? When the furnace exploded just now, it really scared this old man to death. I thought you were really going to lose. Dr. Du stroked his beard and said with lingering fear, Yeah? Why did the furnace explode? Facing these seniors who were protecting her, Mu Yin revealed an obedient smile and explained, Because the energy contained in my pill refining method is too strong. The bronze cauldron's endurance is too poor, so it could not withstand it, and in the end, it exploded. Was it because the energy contained in the alchemy was too strong? Everyone looked at the exploded bronze cauldron, then looked at Mu Yin, their faces filled with shock. Did this little girl know what she was talking about? This bronze cauldron was the most popular cauldron for alchemy in the market. Even the Tiandao sect used this cauldron for alchemy. How come I've never heard of anyone exploding their cauldron during pill refinement? Just how powerful was the energy contained within? Moreover, refining 5 or 6 pills in a single furnace was already considered a lot. But Mayan? He had clearly blown up the pill furnace, and the pill flame was so small, but he had actually managed to refine more than 10 pills at once. This was simply inconceivable. However, the strange thing was that these pills, which were emitting a rich fragrance just a moment ago, had now become pitch black and looked very ordinary. There was nothing special about them at all. Chapter 523. Then, he looked towards the dumbfounded Shi Lanling, and the corners of his lips curled up into a light smile. Shi, did you just say that I'm learning alchemy from you? Shi Lanling's body suddenly quivers, then she glares at Mayan. How is that possible? You clearly don't know how to refine pills. How could you have succeeded in condensing your core? Mu Yin raises her eyebrows. When did I say that I can't refine pills? If you knew how to refine elixirs, how could you have begged me to refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices? Before Mayan could say anything, Han Yi already coolly says, That's because my family's Junshang doesn't want Madam to work hard. So he randomly found an alchemist to do hard labor. In any case, as long as they paid, would they be afraid that they wouldn't be able to find someone to refine pills for them? It's just that Shi happens to be in the Ghost City, it's convenient and cheap to invite her, that's why Junshang chose you. Who would have thought? TSK. Cheap goods don't get good stuff. 3 dark clouds spirit flowers actually only produced 1 golden pill of 9 orifices. These words were simply blatantly saying that Shi Lanling was cheap goods. Shi Lanling's face alternated between green and white. Her eyes were bloodshot as if she wanted to eat someone alive. Unfortunately, Han Yi doesn't seem to have provoked her enough. He continued, Oh, that's right. Just now I remember someone praising Fairy Shi something? He's only in his early 30s and he already knows alchemy? Hee, you're already in your 30s. You're already so old. Do you think you're that great at alchemy? Our family's madam is not even 20 years old and can already refine pills. The pills he refined were 100 times better than yours. Some people look at the sky from the bottom of a well, but they still want to show off. Their skin is really thicker than the city walls. You shut up. Shi Lanling couldn't help but roar. Who does this slut think she is? How could the pills she refined be better than mine? So what if she refined 10 pills? Look at that color and aura. How can it be compared to my Meridian Shield pill? As she spoke, Shi Lanling slowly calmed down. Her gloomy gaze schemes over the elixir in Mayan's hand. Then she becomes more and more certain. If it was before this period of time, she might have been a little fearful of the fact that she could only refine 3rd-grade pills at most. But now, after taking the medicine that Lu Se gave her, not only had the white jade purple frost on her body been dispelled, her looks had also become even more beautiful. Even her pill refining abilities had been greatly enhanced. In the past, she had never succeeded in refining a 4th-grade medicinal pill, but today, she easily succeeded. Moreover, it was a middle-grade Meridian Shield pill. Just casually taking it out, it could make Yinwu Continent's practitioners break their heads over it. He doesn't know what trick that slut Junmayan used, pretending to refine an elixir. But there are no 4th-grade elixirs on the market, so the elixirs that Junmayan takes out are definitely inferior to hers. The person who won in the end was still her, Shi Lanling. Shi Lanling took a deep breath and looked at the ghost slave beside her. What are you waiting for? Go and have a look. What's the grade of the elixir? Don't tell me someone thinks that a dozen or so grade 1 pills can be compared to my grade 4 Meridian Shield pill. This sentence once again made everyone's hearts jump to their throats. That's right, Mayan does refine a lot of elixirs. But in terms of appearance, it was not as dazzling as Shi Lanling's pill. The only one present who believes in Mayan is Han Yi. Chapter 524. That's because all the effects are contained within the elixir, not even a little bit is exposed. Otherwise, as an immortal from the Shoshian continent, he wouldn't be so thick-skinned as to follow behind Mayan all day long, hoping to ask for one more elixir. The ghost slave quickly steps forward and takes one of the elixirs. He smells it, carefully inspects it, and then frowns. Ghost King, this slave can't tell what kind of elixir this is, and can't tell what its quality is? The ghost slave looks at Lu Se. This slave has never seen this kind of elixir before. Ha ha ha. Hearing that, Shi Lanling immediately bursts into laughter. Sure enough, Jun Mayan, you really made some trash to fool everyone. Do you really think we're all fools? Mayan indifferently says, if he can't tell the quality of the elixir, does that mean that these elixirs are trash? Who does he think he is? Humph. Stop struggling. Shi Lanling fiercely says, in the Yinwu continent, even though not everyone can refine pills, everyone knows the pill recipes that are available. Since no one has seen the elixirs that you've refined, and even the ghost slave can't tell the quality, then they must be useless trash. Heh. Mayan lowly laughs. A pair of delicate peach blossom eyes slightly raise, outlining a languid and charming arc. A frog at the bottom of a well, ignorant and inexperienced. But you still have the nerve to bark here. Didn't you want to know whether these elixirs are trash or not? How about I let you see them with your own eyes? Saying that, she leisurely walks forward a few steps. She stops right next to the still unconscious Magistrate Lu. There's only one elixir left in her hand, and she puts it into Magistrate Lu's mouth. At this time, Magistrate Lu is already on the verge of death. The black fog that Lu Se just released to him is the poison smog. And the reason why Magistrate Lu didn't die on the spot like the doctor, it's only because his cultivation is very high. The internal force in his body temporarily withstands the outbreak of the poison smog, but it's just a struggle at death's door. As long as it drags on for another quarter of an hour, he's bound to be like the doctor, his whole body rotting and dying. Seeing Mu Yan's actions, Shi Lanling stares blankly at first, then she laughs out loud. Jun Mu Yan, you can't be thinking that you can cure the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog just by relying on that trash pill, right? Do you know that this poison smog has existed for hundreds of years, and no one has ever been able to cure it? Don't tell me you've lost your mind because you know you're going to lose? Mu Yin ignores her clamor. After sending the pill into Magistrate Lu's body, she immediately stimulated her internal force, letting the pill take effect in Magistrate Lu's body. On the side, Shi Lanling and the ghost envoys are still unscrupulously laughing at Mayan. All of a sudden, cries of alarm rang out in the hall. Look at his face. It was Dr. Wang who spoke. His expression was as if he had seen a miracle in the world. The black spots on his face are fading, and his breathing is becoming stable. God, it's cured. The poison smog in his body is really being removed. In a split second, the laughter of Shi Lanling and the ghost messengers could be heard. It's like a quacking duck suddenly being choked by the throat. Shi Lanling looks over as if she's seen a ghost. Even if you beat her to death, she wouldn't believe that Jun Mu Yin could really cure the poison smog. Compared to Shi Lanling, it's Lu Se who's trying to correct her. Chapter 525. But it's slapped away by Mayan. Ghost King Lu, Magistrate Lu's life is related to the outcome of the competition between me and Shirshianzi. If you accidentally kill him, wouldn't I lose unjustly? Lu Se glares at her, her rough voice trembling with a hint of disbelief. You cured him. You cured the poison smog. How is this possible? No one is clearer than Lu Se. The poison smog is mixed with the poisonous smoke of the seven-star grass after it is ignited. And this seven-star grass can only be found in the Xiaoxian continent and the Xiaoxian continent. Not only does it not exist in the Yinwu continent, there is also no medicine that can restrain the seven-star grass. That's because only elixirs that contain spiritual power could have an effect on the seven-star grass. How could the elixirs that Mayan, a mortal of the Yinwu continent, refined by herself, restrain the seven-star grass? Unless, cough, cough, cough. Violent coughs come from Magistrate Lu's mouth. He slowly opens his eyes and looks around, his face full of confusion. What's going on? Suddenly, a scene flashes through his mind, and his pupils suddenly contract. Didn't I die from the poison smog? Mayan pats his shoulder and stands up. Don't worry, you won't die in a short time. The poison smog in your body has already been dispelled. The expression on Magistrate Lu's face becomes even more bewildered. He stands up, moves his hands and feet, touches his face, and runs his internal force. Then he says in shock, I'm really still alive, and the poison smog in my body is all gone. What's going on? Shunshu, did you save me? Mayan doesn't pay attention to him, but looks at Shi Lanling with a smile that isn't a smile. Shinzi, do you still think that your elixir is more valuable than mine? Who? All of a sudden, everyone comes back to their senses. Each and every one of them suck in a mouthful of cold air, their expressions aghast. And among them, the ghost envoys of the ghost city are even more panic-stricken, finding it hard to believe. The Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog has existed for hundreds of years, and no one has ever been able to dispel it. Therefore, even if a peak pre-celestial expert enters the Ghost Wind Valley, they could only let the ghost city slaughter them. But today, the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog was actually broken by someone. Moreover, it was solved by a girl who was not even 20 years old. How could they accept this? Haha. Good job. Well done. Little girl, I didn't misjudge you. Dr. Song vigorously pats Mayan's shoulder. His face is filled with gratification. I didn't expect that you could actually refine an antidote to the poison smog. This elixir is truly 100 times more precious than any other elixir. Ha ha ha. Dr. Du, on the other hand, sneered at Shi Lanling. Shinzi, who was the one who said that since you lost, you should obediently carry out the bet? Now that you've lost, isn't it time for you to fulfill the bet and cripple your own meridians? Ha ha ha, that's right, Shinzi, you were the one who wanted to bet. It can't be that now that you've lost, you want to act shamelessly, right? Shi Lanling's eyes widen, as if they're about to pop out. Jun Mayan only saved the injured Magistrate Lu. What makes you say that she can cure the poison smog? If a random healing pill can be compared to my 4th grade Meridian Shield pill, wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? Chapter 526. Magistrate Lu was stunned at first, then he fiercely clenched his teeth. Without saying a word, he turned around and walked out of the hall. Everyone held their breath as they watched Magistrate Lu walk into the thick fog. He was slowly entangled by the wisps of black fog, and even his whole body was swallowed up. The timid Dr. Wong could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He was afraid that he would hear Magistrate Lu's scream in the next moment. However, after the time it took to brew a cup of tea, everything was as usual. A quarter of an hour passed, but there was still no scream. Soon after, Magistrate Lu swaggered in from outside. Not only was there no fear on his face, but it was also filled with excitement. As soon as he enters the hall, he rushes towards Mu Yin, shouting, Shinshu, this elixir must be consigned for sale in our ghost city. I'll only take half. No, 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 I won't take a single cent. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. This old man he still doesn't forget about the ghost city's business at this time. Should it be said that he had a screw loose in his brain, or that he was insensitive? However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Magistrate Lu is about to rush in front of Mu Yin and hug her thighs. Suddenly, a black shadow soared into the sky from the side. It was wrapped in a powerful killing intent and went straight towards Magistrate Lu. It was a ghost slave. Be careful. Dodge. Despicable and shameless bastard. You actually launched a sneak attack. The doctors cried out in fear. Dr. Song moves forward, wanting to rush over to save Magistrate Lu. However, it was too late. It was too late. In other words, it was fortunate that Dr. Song didn't rush forward. Otherwise, he would have been killed by the ghost slave along with Magistrate Lu. Because at this moment, they realized this ugly and inconspicuous ghost slave actually had the terrifying cultivation of a high-level pre-celestial. At the side, Shi Lanling slowly raised the corner of her mouth, revealing a sinister smile. As long as Magistrate Lu died, no matter how he died, Junmayan's elixir can't be said to be able to cure the poison smog. It could not be said that he was definitely stronger than her. And in this martial arts competition, she would not lose. Bang! In the end, the ghost slave's palm still fell on Magistrate Lu's body. Magistrate Lu's whole body flew out like a kite with a broken string, heavily hitting the table. The heavy mahogany tables and chairs were smashed into pieces like tofu. Even the tables and chairs suffered such an impact, not to mention Magistrate Lu. For a moment, the complexion of all the doctors was as black as water. They couldn't bear to look at Magistrate Lu's miserable state. Shi Lanling chuckled softly. Soon after, the laughter becomes louder and louder, sharper and sharper. Junmayan, Magistrate Lu is dead, proving that your elixir has no way to restrain the poison smog. In the end, you still lost. You shameless whore. The hot-tempered Dr. Du couldn't hold it in any longer and yelled at Shi Lanling, "Don't go too far. It was obviously you guys who killed him. What does it have to do with Dr. Jun's pills?" How shameless. I didn't expect Shi Lanling to be such a shameless person. Several of the older doctors were so angry that their chests were heaving up and down. They wanted nothing more than to pounce on Shi Lanling and tear her to pieces. They had never seen anyone shameless to this extent. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.